Meeting to order. Bob, any changes to the agenda?
You'll just need to adopt the agenda that's at your desk.
Okay. Motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion second, adopt agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Need approval of the December 11th, 2014 minutes, or if there's any corrections, additions, I need to know at this time.
Move approval.
Motion second to approve the minutes of December 11th, 2014. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are now official. Members of council in the audience, Council Lady Weiner, would you like to speak? Guess she went back outside. Councilman Glover, want to speak at this time?
That'd be great. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. I'm here to talk to you about plan number 2015 SP 006-001. I think the working title on this is Towering Oaks. The reason I'm here to speak with you today is we're requesting an SP on this. The staff has turned it down or recommended a turn down. They're asking for a connection piece that several of the neighborhoods do not want on this, and in fact I think it will be explained today from the civil engineer Adam from Dell and Associates and some others that are going to talk to you. It really would create some safety issues, and I feel like we have some other alternatives that we could come to play on. We did have a community meeting last Monday night. We had in excess of 60 people at the meeting on Monday night at the Hermitage Police Precinct. We've got a few of those people, and I'm going to ask if you don't mind, if you're in favor of the SP, if you would just please stand up. Okay, thank you very much. We don't want to overwhelm you today, but maybe we may have one speak during the public speaking, one or two speak to you, but we would appreciate you approving this plan today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Tenpenny. Okay. Councilman Domney. Council Lady Weiner, come back in. You want to speak?
I'm going to wait until 16's called.
Okay. Nashville next update. Rick, I think it's you.
Good afternoon, council members, and Happy New Year to you and the audience. What I want to do is to try and set the stage a little bit for the framing of the plan as we move from phase 4.5, which we're in now, into the draft plan, which will be made public the end of February or the 1st of March. The draft plan is going to be framed. While we've talked an awful lot about specific topics, we're going to go back to what the community said at the very beginning of this process through the polling and through the ranking in terms of the guiding principles to actually structure the plan itself. And I want to walk through those guiding principles with you. At your desk is a copy of those with a little more of the detail, and the various elements and components of the plan will be actually framed in the context of the guiding principles. And as you remember at the beginning, the guiding principles went through an extensive process of development and have been at the core of everything that has been done through the plan. But they set the framework for the goals and objectives of each of the elements and the strategies and the action. They all build on the guiding principles. And basically, there are 7 guiding principles that are at the core, and each one will be talked about in terms of what is the guiding principle. The first one is ensure equity for all. Thinking about equity is about fairness and opportunity for all. The principle itself, as you see on your sheet, will have a little bit of explanation. For example, In terms of equity, it talks about Nashville and the region becoming more racially, ethnically, and age diverse. Everyone needs equitable access to opportunities. How we gain from creating a place where all people can improve their lives and contribute to the larger community. Recognizing the importance of equity and integrating it into our decisions and policies. Celebrating our diversity and capitalizing on the talents and resources of all, and committing to work in partnership to create a fair and just system. We'll also list as part of that the major impact items that are associated with that. In this case, we're still working through those as to what they are, but an inclusive community engagement process is one, which is something that has been at the core of Nashville Next. The second basic principle is expanding accessibility, and that's accessibility for all. Accessibility is absolutely critical for equity. And this is to allow all people to come together, have access to resources, transportation, employment, educational opportunities, online capabilities, and civic representation. The third key guiding principle is to create economic prosperity. And economic prosperity actually focuses on a broad range of things, continuing to grow and our creative and innovative culture, increase our quality of life, keep Nashville affordable, prioritize policy and infrastructure investments, focus on drawing new businesses, retaining existing businesses, support local hiring are all elements of creating economic prosperity. The fourth component of the principles is to foster strong neighborhoods. Neighborhoods are really the heart and soul and the DNA of Nashville. And these will focus on creating complete neighborhoods that provide choices and opportunities in housing and transportation, and in strong neighborhoods where there are choices and opportunities. And it will also recognize the difference between rural, suburban, and urban neighborhoods in terms of being complete. And it will also focus on promoting fair and equal access to housing. Some of the impact items here will deal with policies for where to extend sewer service or not, transition areas, missing middle housing, walkability, recreational opportunities, and those types of things as well. The next is in advancing education, having educational access for all in terms of focusing on that, focusing on lifetime learning as a key part of educational system, focusing on the importance that every child needs to start into the educational system with a full access, including such things as universal pre-K and other workforce training items. Lifetime and lifelong learning is a key part of this. Educational access in terms of providing different types of educational access in buildings throughout the community. The sixth one in terms of our guiding principles is championing the environment, recognizing the critical importance of environmental stewardship as being our responsibility. Building on, focusing on land and water conservation, promoting efficient transportation and well-designed walkable neighborhoods, and then sustaining our ecological functions and resource value throughout the community. Connectivity, obviously a key issue. The focus on natural resource preservation, hazard adaptation are critical elements that will come under this. And then the last one is Be Nashville. It's recognition of Nashville. Nashville is our strength. We are a unique city, and we're not looking to be something else, and we're trying to take the key elements of Nashville and actually continue those, expand those, and recognize those. Recognizing the advantage of our rich history, celebrate our musical heritage, artistic energy, cultural diversity, built upon our entrepreneurial and creative spirit, and to take that in terms of the decisions there. So the plan itself will be focused in these major elements and be presented in these major elements, and then obviously there's going to be the topical components that will come under that, but the framing of the plan itself will be done in the context of these guiding principles. What I'd be interested in, all of our resource teams and key foundational groups have reviewed these. I've provided you a written copy. We'll also send you an electronic copy. And if you've got any comments or questions, we would appreciate that before we incorporate that into the final draft. Thank you.
items for deferral or withdrawal?
Yes, there are several items for deferral, starting with item 1A. This is a request to amend the South Nashville Community Plan by changing the community character policy from T4 neighborhood maintenance policy to a T4 mixed-use neighborhood policy for property located at Wedgwood Avenue unnumbered. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 12th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting. The associated zone change with that plan amendment is item 1B, 2014 SP-082-001. This is a request to rezone from R6 to SP zoning for property located at Wedgwood Avenue unnumbered to permit a mixed-use development. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 12th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting. Next item is item 3, 2014 SP-088-001. This is a request to rezone from R6 and CS zoning to SP zoning for property located at 1033 Birchwood Avenue to permit up to 8 detached residential dwelling units. The staff recommendation is to defer to the January 22nd, 2015 Planning Commission meeting. Item 4, 2013 NL-001-002. This is a request for approval of a neighborhood landmark development plan for property located at 5022 Old Hides Ferry Pike to permit a cafe and restaurant use, a working farm, and special events in addition to the general office use previously approved. Staff recommendation is to defer indefinitely. Next item is item 5, 2014 S-162-001. This is a request for final plat approval to remove the reserve status and create one lot on property located at Old Hickory Boulevard unnumbered. Staff recommendation is to withdraw. Next item is 7A, 2014 CP-010-004. This is a request to amend the Green Hills Midtown Community Plan by changing the community character policy from T4 neighborhood maintenance policy to T4 neighborhood center policy for property located at 1109 and 1111 Montrose Avenue. Staff recommendation is to defer to the January 22nd Planning Commission meeting. The associated zone change with that one is item 7B, 2014 SP-083-001. This is a request to rezone from R8 to SP zoning for property located at 1109 and 1111 Montrose Avenue to permit a mixed-use development. The staff recommendation is to defer to the January 22nd Planning Commission meeting. Next item on the deferral list is 2015 SP-001-001. This is a request to rezone from R6 to SP zoning for properties located at 1700, 1702, 1706, 1710, and 1712 6th Avenue North to permit up to 20 multifamily dwelling units. And the staff recommendation is to defer indefinitely. Next item is item 13, 2015 SP-007-001. This is a request to rezone from OR20 to SP zoning for properties located at 1202, 1204, 1206, 1208, and 1212 16th Avenue South and 16th Avenue South unnumbered to permit a residential development with a maximum of 135 dwelling units. Or for redevelopment under the OR20A zoning district requirements. Staff recommendation is to defer to the January 22nd, 2015 Planning Commission meeting. And the last item on the deferral list is item 21, 2015 S-008-001. This is a request for final plat approval to create 3 lots on property located at 920 Kerwood Boulevard. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 12th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you. Bob, I'm going to read these back if you'll be sure that I'm correct on the ones that we're going to defer. It's items 1A, 1B, 3, 4, 5, 7A, 7B, 9, 13, and 21.
That's correct, with item 5 being a withdrawal.
Withdrawn, okay. Yes. All right, Commissioners, is there a motion to defer those items?
Move approval.
Before the vote, just a note for the record, Commissioner Blackshear recuses herself on item 13.
Okay, we got a motion. Was there a second? Motion second to defer these items. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Items on consent.
Okay, before I get to the consent agenda, as information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. As noticed to the public, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or a commission member requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. So as I read the following items into the record, please raise your hand if you'd like one of these items removed from the consent agenda. First item is item 2, 2014 SP 087-001. This is a request to rezone from R6 to SP zoning for properties located at 1505 and 1507 Holly Street to permit up to 5 dwelling units on 3 lots, including 2 lots with 1 or 2 family dwelling units within a single structure on each lot and 1 lot with a single family dwelling unit. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions, including a variance for sidewalks along Lindsley Park Drive. Next item on the consent agenda is item 10, 2015 SP-002-001. This is a request to rezone from R6 to SP zoning for property located at 1618 4th Avenue North to permit up to 8 residential dwelling units. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Next item is item 15, 2014 Z-061 PR-001. This is a request to rezone from R8 to CS zoning for property located at O'Brien Avenue unnumbered. Staff recommendation is to approve. Next item on the consent agenda is item 17, 7-87P-001. This is a request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for a portion of the Haywood Oaks Commercial PUD Overlay District for property located at 3800 Ezel Road to permit the subdivision of the property into 2 lots. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Next item is item 18, 75-83P-002. This is a request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for a portion of the Commercial PUD Overlay District for property located at 3941 Nolensville Pike to permit the addition of 5,050 square feet of commercial space to an existing shopping center. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Next item is item 19, 2014 NL-003-002. This is a request for approval of a neighborhood landmark development plan for property located at 3405 Belmont Boulevard to permit multimedia production and a single-family home as uses to be permitted within an existing structure. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Next item is item 20, 2014 S-222-001. This is a request for final plat approval to create 3 lots on property located at 2138 18th Avenue North. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Next item is item 22, 2015 S-010-001. This is a request for final plat approval to create 3 lots on property located at 1067 2nd Avenue South. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Next item under other business is item 23, employee contract renewal for Craig Owensby. Staff recommends approval. Item 24, exclusion of American Safety Casualty Insurance Company, including parent companies and subsidiaries of, from providing surety bonds for 1 year pursuant to Section 6-1.2D of the Metro Subdivision Regulations. Item 25 is a resolution authorizing the expenditure of up to $5,000 from the fiscal year 2015 Advanced Planning and Research Fund to reimburse the University of Tennessee Design Studio during the spring semester for documented expenses to analyze specific corridor locations for the introduction of missing middle housing in conjunction with the Nashville Next project. The total of this authorization and the funding authorized by Resolution RS 2014-240 shall not exceed $50,000 from the FY 2015 Advanced Planning and Research Fund. Staff recommends approval of item 25. And the last item is item 29, is to accept the director's report and approve administrative items.
Thank you, Bob. Before we ask for approval on these on consent, we've got several people that had asked to speak on item 11, which is the Broadstone 8th South. But none of those were marked in opposition. Is there anyone here on item 11 that's in opposition?
There are.
Stand if you're in opposition to it and would like to speak. So no. Okay. And that will not be on consent. Okay, the items, and Bob, check me on the items on consent. Then is item number 2, 10, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26.
29 is the last one.
29.
Yep, that's correct.
Is there a motion to accept those items on consent?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items now have been approved on consent. The first item that we will be hearing today is number 6. Letitia? Go. Okay.
Good afternoon. Item number 6 is a final plat request for Thompson Bonds. The request is to create 4 lots. This is located in East Nashville. The properties are outlined in red. This is just east of Chapel Avenue along Sharp and Manchester. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove the request for a sidewalk variance. Current zoning is R6, and this is located within the Eastwood Neighborhood Conservation Overlay District. The policy is T4, Urban Neighborhood Maintenance. Typically, infill subdivisions within the neighborhood maintenance policy would have to meet infill criteria. However, since this is in a historic overlay, Metro Historic Zoning Commission would have the final review and approval for the final building placement, improvements, and elevations. They also do recommend approval for the subdivision. This is the plat proposed by the applicant. The existing lots have frontage along Manchester Avenue, and the new lots would be formed from the rear yards of lots 1 and 2. Lots 3 and 4 will have frontage along Sharp Avenue, and access will be gained from the alley. Sidewalks are required with this subdivision. Sidewalk construction is required to fill in the gap between 2 sidewalks existing. First existing sidewalk is over on Manchester Avenue. It ends at Lot 2, circled in green. The other one is off of Matthews Place to the north. The sidewalk is required to be installed to connect Manchester all the way through to Sharp. This is a larger view of the East Nashville sidewalk plan interconnectivity, showing where the existing sidewalks are. As you can see, adding the sidewalk here along Manchester over to Sharp will provide an important pedestrian connection. Where sidewalks are required, the street pavement must be a minimum of 20 feet. The existing pavement along Sharp Avenue is 17 feet. Sharp Avenue would need to be widened to allow for the additional pavement and required sidewalks. This is a larger view of what the applicant had submitted to attempt to demonstrate the hardship for sidewalk installation. The applicant has submitted this plan and identified the pavement expansion along with the sidewalks. Staff has reviewed this plan and can see that the construction of the sidewalk and pavement expansion can happen. The applicant has identified in their variance request alleged stormwater issues, the removal of mature trees, and adjustments to the stairs along the existing home. These are some pictures from the site. This is the substandard Sharp Avenue. The sidewalks would have to be installed along this side, which is the south side. This is also the house that's existing where the stairs would need to be adjusted. Staff recommends disapproval of the variance. No unique property hardship has been identified that would prohibit the construction of the sidewalks at this location. Staff finds that the improvements to substandard roads and the result of a new subdivision are not unique to the property. And the subdivision regulations and the general plan both support sidewalk installation and connectivity. If the request is granted, sidewalks would not be required and Sharp Avenue will remain substandard. If the request is denied, sidewalks will be required and Sharp Avenue will be improved to public works standards. In conclusion, staff recommends approval with conditions and disapproval of the request for the sidewalk variance.
Thank you, Letitia. This item is open for public hearing. The applicant will be allowed 10 minutes, and you can keep 2 of that back for rebuttal if you'd like.
Hi there. Thank you to the Planning Commission for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Jerry Vandiver. My wife Gracie and I own the property at 315 Manchester, which is designated Lot 1 on the layout. We are not absentee owners, as we live only 2 homes away at 1702 Sharp Avenue, and that is why our request for a sidewalk variance along Sharp Avenue is important to us as neighbors in the proposed subdivision. As you can see from the photos that we have given you, Letitia, I assume you've passed those out?
I did.
Okay, thank you. We've given you some photos, as you can see from those, that the developed property at 315 Manchester is a cottage-style duplex with 1 dwelling in front on Manchester and the other in the rear on Sharp. We intend to maintain this dwelling and have agreed to the conditions to remove the driveway on Manchester as well as extend the sidewalk on Manchester. We are asking for a variance only for the sidewalk on Sharp Avenue for the following reasons. First, the installation of the sidewalk requires a widening of Sharp Avenue that would, along with the curb and sidewalk width, leave only a 5-foot setback from the northeast corner of the front of the dwelling to the sidewalk as illustrated in the layout. Secondly, this road and sidewalk condition also intrudes onto the handrail support as well as the steps of the rear dwelling on Sharp as illustrated on the layout. Repositioning the steps and rails to either side would create a situation where it would be exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to move furniture in and out of the dwelling as tenants would be doing. As you can see on the photograph that we took just today, in fact, the support posts to the porch roof offer only a side opening of 28.5 inches. Thirdly, as stated in the accompanying letter on page 3 of our pass out to you there, our study shows that subsequent road widening and curb installation would most definitely create an excessive rainwater runoff that would be directed to the alley behind the subdivision and further contribute to an already existing erosion problem in the alley. This alley already receives a great deal of runoff from Matthews directly across and has shown erosion problems in the past. In fact, not long ago, Metro has installed asphalt diversions in the alley to try to control this problem, which we pointed out in a photograph there to you. I myself have also placed rock fill and concrete in places to try to control this erosion. The accompanying photos illustrate this situation. Staff states that the rain garden capacity as designed can handle the stormwater. However, that isn't possible simply because of the installation of the curb will direct stormwater away from the rain garden rather than towards it. The rain garden can handle, however, stormwater without a curb and sidewalk blocking the flow of water. Fourth, installing a sidewalk would require the removal of 4 mature trees that contribute to the beauty and charm of this immediate area, which we hope to show you in that photograph there. Fifth, widening Sharp Avenue from Manchester to Matthews will create a bottleneck for westbound drivers on Sharp Avenue as the road narrows back to 17 feet east of Matthews and it goes to only 16 feet in width at the corner of Sharp and Chapel. Finally, we would like to go on record to state that we could have sold this property long before these conditions were put into place. We chose not to do so because we wanted to make sure that when this property was developed, that there would not only be any inappropriate construction on it, as there is currently going on all around our area. Subsequently, as officers and members of the Board of Directors of the Eastwood Neighbors Association, Gracie and I have worked tirelessly last year for the expansion of the conservation overlay in our neighborhood, and more specifically for this particular piece of property, so that the integrity and charm of the area will be maintained. I would like to note that the developer we have contracted with for this project has agreed to build 2 single-family residences in the style of Craftsman bungalow that fits in with our neighborhood and maintains its charm. They, like us, and unlike so many developers around us, sincerely care about our neighborhood. In conclusion, I must point out that if the sidewalk variance on Sharp Avenue is not granted, we will not be able to move forward with this development. Because of this, we ask the Planning Commission to please not punish us for deeply caring about our neighborhood and grant this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Is anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in support? Come to the microphone.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Brett Withers. I live at 1113 Granada Avenue. I'm the immediate past president of the Eastwood Neighbors Neighborhood Association, where this is, and indeed I can attest to Gracie and Jerry's diligence in working on our conservation overlay expansion effort earlier this year. Certainly, lots of development is going on in our neighborhood, and this isn't a narrow street. One of the ironies, I think, a little bit for this particular block is these particular homes are non-contributing structures. They are structures that at some point in time, even within the conservation overlay, could be removed. Our neighborhood has a lot of discussion going on about trying to maintain some of our smaller homes, even if they are non-contributing historic structures. They happen to be small duplexes. They're modest-sized houses that have apartments in them, and so they provide what is increasingly rare in East Nashville, which are small apartments in modest-sized houses that are relatively affordable. And I think in those circumstances where we have a lot of development taking place on surrounding lots that do contain non-contributing homes, they're increasing the density on quite a few lots surrounding that, from 1 to 2 homes and the traffic that goes with that. In this case, they could have done the same, but they have limited it to a single-family home, and I think that they're making an effort to try to have minimal impact on the neighborhood, and along with that minimal impact is a minimal profit. So I think from an economic standpoint, in the overall view of trying to maintain some of the affordability of the units, that I would encourage you to consider the variance request for the sidewalks and road widening on Sharp. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you. Members of the Planning Commission, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you. My name is Peter Westerholm. I'm the Metro Council member for District 6, in which this project is taking place. I wanted to express my support for the applicant's request for a variance for the sidewalk and road widening as well. I believe that you've heard a number of the reasons stated for that, and I would just add to it from my own perspective. Having walked down this road a number of times, meeting with the applicants and some neighbors and trying to get a sense of what was the best result for that area. I would say that it's rare that I would ever not advocate for sidewalks. Sidewalks, I absolutely believe, are an integral component of all of our neighborhoods. And it is, in this situation, though, I do think that a variance is warranted because, as we all have seen, the width of streets, this is a very narrow street. The fact that it's a narrow street already is a traffic calming mechanism in of itself. There is a lot of pedestrian traffic already. There's a lot of folks who walk their dogs down the street, and I've heard from folks who think that it serves its purpose quite well as it is. And with the existing structure on the north parcel there, it does create some difficult situations as far as how they might be able to configure things. So I would just express my support for their request for variance from that condition for the sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, is anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, the applicant's got 2 minutes for rebuttal, but I don't know any, no opposition, so if you don't want that 2 minutes, and I'll declare the public hearing closed. Andre?
I mean, my first reaction when I look at the pictures is seems like a charming street that is pleasant, and that's kind of rare. I'm interested to hear everybody else's comments, but I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks.
Jennifer?
I think I'm in the same boat. I actually drove down the street earlier today to get a feel for it, and have to admit I never quite realized that this was more than a driveway or an alley. I didn't realize that it wrapped around to another street. Given how narrow the streets are, I do see how it could be an issue to, add in the sidewalk piece to it. It feels like a very hard to navigate street already, so I understand the concerns. But I also understand the need for connectivity in these neighborhoods and getting more sidewalks into these areas. So I'm on the fence, and I'll listen to others' input.
No comment.
Hunter?
This is in my backyard, not too far away. And, this street is sort of a quaint little, dogleg back street without much traffic. My initial thought was, is there a way to provide a sidewalk that within the existing right-of-way, or, without necessarily intruding on the existing porch, handrails, and maybe even the trees there. I guess, it sort of brings up a question about our authority related to streets, public works standards. Is there a compromise that this body could find that would, or would does Public Works have the final say in terms of the street section and street, design? Maybe that's a question for staff.
Well, I mean, the requirement for a sidewalk is a requirement in your subdivision regulations. They're building this sidewalk within this right-of-way. This is not taking additional right-of-way. It's kind of based on the location of the location of the existing house. I mean, I think there's two things that have been important to the commission in ways that you've dealt with these. One is this connects two existing sidewalks. So it's a key link. The commission in other cases where you've granted a variance from putting the sidewalk on this property have required the applicant to put in a sidewalk of equivalent length elsewhere if you don't find that this is an appropriate location. That's an option that you have done in the past. And just to clarify, there is nothing in this plat that would require any certain type of house to be built. So, and the plat anticipates that all four, the two existing and then the two new lots will be redeveloped over time. So I understand it's just nothing in here that deals with the type of housing. So any house could be built on these lots.
It's not a SP.
Right.
So are you sure that it appears by the drawing that the applicant provided that the right-of-way would be widened?
That is accurate. I will pull it up here. And that was from the construction of the sidewalk and the expansion of that pavement that's southbound.
So it's the combination of the combined pavement and
the sidewalk, correct.
That's creating the conflict. Mm-hmm. And does this body have any authority over
the body
over the pavement requirement?
That would be a public works standard, sir.
That's one of the issues we were sort of wrestling with, is that with the sidewalk required, then the pavement for the road has to be widened by 3 feet. But if there's no sidewalk required, then it can remain at 17 feet. So that's what Public Works has required to meet their construction standards.
What is the right-of-way on that? Could that 3 feet be added to the opposite side of the street?
Well, the right-of-way itself is 50 feet, and when it was originally put in, it was 25 feet, and then 25 feet was added to the north portion, so it would have to be on the south side because that's where the sidewalk would then go.
So the street is offset within the right-of-way?
It is a little offset, correct.
And how wide is the pavement?
17 feet. It gives and takes a little bit throughout Sharp Avenue.
Could the sidewalk be narrower? Would that help at all? If it were 4 feet or 3 feet?
We would do the standard of 5 feet for our subdivision regulations.
And a
We'd have to
4-foot
do
grass
5
strip?
feet?
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do we have to do 5 feet? Could we 4 feet? Would another foot somewhere help? I mean, I'm just trying to think, this is pretty narrow margins. Could we cut it a foot? Would that make any difference?
I think it would still have to expand the right-of-way here. Right now, the grass strip is not required, which is also very helpful in this. And I know Public Works has worked with them on having the minimum of 20 feet for the pavement and not having anything more.
Well, Rick, could we put a caveat that it happened if and when those two houses on the front street are redeveloped instead of now?
Well, there is, I mean, you're going to have two new houses on that street where the sidewalk is.
Sharp.
Right. But there's going to be, this proposal includes two new houses on Sharp.
Right.
And then the other one, I think part of the problem, though, is I don't know that would solve the other issues of the trees and some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 50 feet of right-of-way
Yeah.
according to the plat, but the pavement is offset. It's not in the center of the right-of-way. And so we looked at putting the sidewalk on the other side of the street, but I think there's more trees that would have to be taken out if it went onto the north side than on the south side. And I think that's one issue that made it difficult is that even though there appears to be enough right-of-way existing, the pavement for the road is not in the center of that right-of-way.
Let me ask this, if you got 50-foot right-of-way and you got 20-foot of pavement that you're trying to now come up with, and there's trees on the north side, but does that sidewalk have to be between the pavement and those trees, or can it be on the other side of can they meander around the trees on that opposite side? Because you're going to have probably about 25 feet or so of right-of-way on that other side that belongs to the
I mean, we would generally recommend that a pedestrian easement to go around the trees. I don't think in this situation that that's a possibility.
No, I think he's talking about could he put not within the right-of-way, not within the existing unbuilt-on right-of-way. There's roughly 25 feet of unbuilt-on right-of-way north of the.
It's my understanding that the trees are in that area, and it would be difficult to do that without removing a lot of trees.
But if we put a condition on approval that sidewalk of equal length is provided elsewhere within the neighborhood, that could be across the street potentially. Is that right? I mean, that might be if it turns out that it is practical to do that.
Yeah, we looked at that option. We just felt like it was important to connect the two existing sidewalks in this situation. And instead
But to answer your question, if it's found that it could go on the north side, that still could connect them, and it would be possible to go there, right?
Could we look at the picture again that shows more both sides of the street? With the red houses or
Oh,
graphic.
sure. That one?
that one.
Okay.
So those other sites are already developed on the other, they're not empty lots or anything. It almost seems like that's such a quiet, narrow street. They're using the street as the sidewalk anyway. It just seems hard-pressed. I feel hard-pressed to require a sidewalk in addition to that when we need sidewalks in so many other places.
Elsewhere. Yeah. But the staff recommendation or the request by the applicant is just to have a variance and not provide a sidewalk at all.
Anywhere, right.
Anywhere.
Nowhere, not even on Manchester? I thought it was just variance.
No, it'd be on Manchester, right, not on Sharp.
There's no reason why it can't be extended down to the corner to
The
Manchester.
the applicant stated that they would extend the sidewalk on Manchester, but they didn't want to do it on Sharp.
So so I'm going to go back to my original question about the street standards. And did you say that by building a sidewalk, it's really a trigger for a public works standard? And is that just a policy? Is that
Somebody, Public Works here?
I didn't see you back there, Jonathan. Thanks.
Just trying to hide. To answer, well, there's, as far as the technical design, some of the requirements, what we're looking on it, I'll take a little step back and answer some of the questions regarding that. We're originally looking at current sidewalks along Manchester that's already existing, 5-foot sidewalk on the back of the post, on the back of the curb with no grass strip. We're looking at maintaining the existing sidewalk along Sharp Avenue to minimize the impact on the property. Originally, when the road was built, it was, if I recall, it was probably about 25 feet of right-of-way with the roadway built in, so it's equivalent to an alley standard way it was built, and it's the way it's been maintained ever since. As far as the sidewalk construction on the north side, it raises up concerns with, there's topography, you got an increase in elevation, grading, there's some historic area, we've got private infrastructure fencing that'll be impacted, as well as mature trees that have to be removed. So as far as the requirement, this development's requirement for sidewalks, we're looking at it to be constructed on their side of the roadway, which and with the roadway is in the original alignment, so it's offset with the current right-of-way as shown now.
So what does the additional pavement gain us in this particular situation?
With the requirements for sidewalks, we have requirements of gutters to be installed for protection of pedestrian safety, as well as maintaining the storm water from the roadway and for protection of the sidewalk there. With the installation of the gutter line, it's triggering minimum pavement widths. What we look at in this case is that we do a 3-foot pavement addition on this side of the roadway. It's maintaining a minimum of 20 feet. And then if the other side redevelops, the same requirements will be placed on the other side as well with improvements there. So this basically looks from the center line of what the roadway would ultimately be built as, and just their responsibility for their side of the roadway.
And so since this is a unique condition where the street is offset on their side, there would be no exceptions to those standards to where they could potentially provide the sidewalk within the existing right-of-way without widening the pavement.
With the installation of the gutter, we're looking for a minimal pavement width to be installed along the roadway to still accommodate the flow of traffic along Sharp. Are you asking about pavement addition on the other side, or?
Well, that was another question, but given the amount of traffic that's on the street, which is negligible, I'm not sure I follow the logic there, but and then that would also the question about would a new sidewalk on the north side trigger street improvements on that side as well?
We would be the same requirements on this side as well as the other side. I would anticipate if it ever developed.
And are there no exceptions to that trigger? Is that trigger a policy? Is it a rule, a law, or what's the?
Well, we've already varied a little with no grass strip. Typically with new roadway construction, there'll be curb and gutter constructed, as well as a 4-foot grass furnishing area for utilities, hydrants, power poles, signage. In this case, we've already reduced the 4 feet grass furnishing area. We're looking at a roll top curb instead of the curb and gutter. So and then as far as our design standards, our minor roadways, you're looking at 23 feet of pavement on a minor roadway if it's a new construction. So.
Thanks.
Walter?
No comments.
Okay. Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
You know, I don't disagree that given the unique condition of this street, very little traffic here, that, you know, people walk in the street and it's perfectly safe now, probably. But I do think there are parts of the neighborhood that could use some sidewalk extensions. So I would move that we approve staff recommendation. Staff recommendation for approval of the subdivision, but with the condition that an equivalent sidewalk is built elsewhere within the neighborhood and not on
So
this
you would,
property.
you grant the variance, but with the caveat that they put a sidewalk somewhere else at the same length or something?
Right, it's the
Is that what
same
you're
length. That's the way it's typically, it's the same amount of sidewalk, right?
saying? Is that what you mean?
I don't know if it's granting the variance or not, or whether it's just,
You'd grant the variance from putting it at this location with the condition that they put an equivalent amount of sidewalk elsewhere in the
In the
neighborhood.
same pedestrian benefit
Right,
zone.
right.
that's my motion.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're ready for item number 8, I believe. So number 8 is Councilman Banks. You weren't here. Just read it back. Yeah. Councilman Banks, you weren't here earlier. Would you like to speak now, or you want to wait till you're up? Item comes up.
Not that good looking, Jim.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Good afternoon. Tiffany Capehart. I'm presenting item 8A, 2015 CP-005-001, East Nashville Community Plan Amendment. This is a request to amend the land use policy from urban neighborhood maintenance to urban neighborhood evolving. The subject properties are located at the corner of Porter Road and Tillman Lane, and includes properties that front onto Powers Avenue in East Nashville. The total subject area is 2.2 acres. The subject properties are roughly 1 mile east of Gallatin Pike, and the Rose Pepper Neighborhood Center is roughly a third of a mile to the southwest. And staff recommendation is to approve. The existing policy on these properties and within the area is urban neighborhood maintenance. There's also conservation policy on the site, acknowledging a stream that runs parallel to Porter Road. This feature should be considered with any future development of these properties. Urban neighborhood maintenance is typically applied to preserve the general character of urban neighborhoods. These areas will experience some change over time as buildings are expanded or replaced, and as improvements to physical infrastructure are made, such as new sidewalks and new streets, for example. These areas could accommodate or could have existing within them a range of housing types, including single-family, townhomes, and in some cases, walk-up apartments. Urban neighborhood maintenance areas also have good access, with the distinguishing features being alleys and greater access to transit. The proposed policy on the subject properties is urban neighborhood evolving. This to show you a little bit more context. Urban neighborhood evolving is typically applied to create or enhance the general character of urban neighborhoods. The resulting development pattern may include higher densities than existing urban neighborhoods, smaller lot sizes, or different housing types. Urban neighborhood evolving policy is applied to areas that have unique lot structures, such as lots that are larger than what's surrounding, vacant lots, or lots that are most likely to either be consolidated or subdivided. And it is applied to areas where there is close proximity to commercial centers and corridors. So the application of urban neighborhood evolving is appropriate. The area being considered is made up of unique lot structure whereby the lots are large enough to consider more diverse housing types and higher density in future development. Neighborhood evolving policy offers opportunity for infill development in this location that takes advantage of existing infrastructure such as sidewalks and an existing transit route. Similarly, the policy would encourage more housing within close proximity to the nearby neighborhood center, reducing the need for car travel and creating more opportunities for walking. The urban neighborhood evolving policy also guides land use transitions with regard to building setbacks, building height, massing, and scale, and also addresses environmental features. So in summary, the application of urban neighborhood evolving policy supports these critical planning goals. The urban neighborhood evolving policy guides the creation of walkable neighborhoods by placing a range of housing types near a variety of transportation options, and infill development, whereby new development uses existing infrastructure and provides appropriate transitions to the surrounding development. And staff recommendation is to approve.
All right, give me a second. My name is Melissa Sajid. I'm going to present the companion zone change case to Tiffany's plan amendment. There we go. All right, so this is item 8B, 821 Porter Road multifamily. This is a request to rezone from R6 to SP to permit up to 54 stacked flats and 9 detached residential units. Property located at the corner, again, of Porter Road and Tillman Lane. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions, subject to approval of the policy amendment. Property is currently zoned R6. Surrounding zoning includes R6 as well as CN. And as Tiffany stated, the existing policy is urban neighborhood maintenance, and the proposed policy is urban neighborhood evolving. The SP is not consistent with the existing urban neighborhood maintenance policy, but would be consistent with the urban neighborhood evolving policy, as it would introduce an additional housing type into the area. Also, the SP meets several critical planning goals. Got ahead of myself. So here we have the plan. The SP proposes 54 stacked flats and 2 buildings. The smaller building, which is located on Porter Road, and the larger building wraps around the corner of Porter Road and Tillman Lane and has frontage along both of those streets. The 9 detached units all front Powers Avenue to the east. Access is provided at 3 points, one along each street frontage. Also, there is an unimproved alley that bisects the property parallel to Porter Road. There is an existing stream that's found within that right-of-way, so the applicant has requested to close it by mandatory referral, as the required stream buffer, which you can see here, would prohibit the construction of that alley. Parking for the detached units is provided in garages to the rear of the buildings, as well as some on-street parking is proposed. For the stacked flats, they're proposing 2 parking decks, which would be located interior to the site. There would be an access off Tillman that would go to the lower level, and another off of Porter Road, which would go to the upper level parking deck. Also, the SP proposes to extend sidewalks along Tillman and Powers, and to improve the existing sidewalks along the Porter Road frontage. So the maximum height proposed for the stacked flats is 4 stories and 60 feet, and the maximum height for the detached residential units is 3 stories and 41 feet. So here we have a site section that illustrates how the plan uses the site topography to complement the existing context along Porter Road, which is here, and Powers with regard to height. And also, our architectural elevations were submitted with the plan. They proposed an arts and crafts style architecture, which is present in the neighboring Eastwood neighborhood. So here we have elevations along Porter Road. These would be the stacked flats. And then you would move to the corner. This would be what you would see at the corner of Porter Road and Tillman Lane. And then here we have multifamily elevation at Tillman Lane, and then this would be the side facade of the detached unit at the corner of Tillman Lane and Powers Avenue. And then the elevations along Powers Avenue. In conclusion, staff recommends approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions, subject to approval of the policy amendment.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
This item's open for public hearing. Applicants be allowed 10 minutes to make their presentation. You may hold 2 minutes back for rebuttal.
Members of the commission, good afternoon. I'm Jeff Hines with Littlejohn, and we are representing the Colley family, who are the owners of this property and has been in their family for close to 100 years. So it used to be a larger farm, and over time has developed as part of the context of East Nashville. We have worked diligently with staff to arrive at the plan and the context amendment to the community policy before you today. I think actually the plan reflects many of the principles outlined in the Nashville Next guidelines. It is offering housing choices in the context of meeting the architectural definition of the existing neighborhood on a infill development situation with existing infrastructure on a transit line, on a bike path, and within a 3rd mile walkable of support restaurants, commercial and such, both to the north and to the south on Porter Road. So really this is offering a different housing choice within the East Nashville neighborhood for whether it's an older generation or a younger generation to really take advantage of. From that standpoint, we ask for your support. I would comment on one thing, though, that I think Melissa mentioned 4 stories along Porter, and in actuality, the street edge is 3 stories along Porter. The internal, as you see step up there higher, is back on the internal part of the site, and it's an interior stair within those units. So really, it's not 4 stories of access like you think of in context of an apartment building. With that, I'll reserve my time to answer any questions or concerns that might be expressed.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support, you come to the microphone. Anyone in support? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Pardon me, Commissioners. I would like to speak on this topic. I'm primarily wanting to speak on the land use policy change aspect, if I may. Like I said, I'm the immediate past president of the Neighborhood Association, and during the past year, our neighborhood has had a pretty extensive discussion about expanding our conservation zoning overlay. The conservation zoning overlay did expand over to the western side of Porter, but did not cross to the eastern side of Porter. Certainly, our neighbors are interested in preserving the historic structures in our neighborhood. It ended up being the case that we had, for some of these particular properties, there was not a great deal of historic context for qualifying for the conservation overlay, and there was not a solid property owner support on that side quite there either. So I think that is definitely something that our neighborhood has in mind, but it ends up being the case that this property was not included in our conservation overlay. But I do want to say as well that our neighborhood has had some discussions over the last year with other developments that have gone on in our neighborhood, and I do feel like the policy change in some aspects of the SP respond to those concerns that were expressed. There's a property at Porter and Eastland that was a rental property, and it's being replaced by a cottage development, and some neighbors expressed a concern about the loss of affordable rental units there. This certainly provides a large number of rental units, but it does provide an option that is limited in our neighborhood. Also, some of our neighbors have expressed concerns in the past about new developments not having adequate parking, and this one also has a lot of adequate parking that's been proposed as well. So I think for this particular parcel is probably the best candidate of any for neighborhood evolving, but neighbors do have some concerns about parking and density generally, and I would encourage you to listen to their concerns about that as you discuss the actual SP. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please come to the microphone.
My name's Rick Punkashar. I live at 818 Porter. Just a couple of things. This is a really drastic development coming into an R6 neighborhood. It's massive. There's very few in developments as dense as this that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot smaller density issues around the east side. This is a very dense change to the neighborhood, and I just hope that the neighbors, the owners in this area get heard. I've got in my office an article from the Tennessean. In fact, Roy Dale, I don't know where he went, was in this meeting. In 1998, I was trying to make a proposal to take a project across Stewart's Ferry Pike and called Lake Chateau, and we had been a successful developer there. And 93 people showed up at the meeting. 3 were for it, who were the owners of the property that were to be substantially compensated for selling us their land. 90 were opposed, and in a meeting just like this, vociferously opposed. And Phil Ponder turned to Bill Berkeley and Roy Dale and said, well, boys, that's about it for this one. And I think what's happening really in the neighborhoods is some of the folks feel underrepresented when there's massive changes floating around. So we don't feel represented well by our councilmen. We don't feel represented well by the Planning Commission. And this is a massive change. Now, I like it. I like the idea of multifamily. I like the idea of affordable housing. But this is a very dense change in an R6 neighborhood. In living in this high-growth corridor that none of us thought we were living in 10 years ago, now many people in East Nashville are living in what's called high-growth corridors. I don't like the idea of changing the city plan. I think that was a good plan. It was thought out. Just because it should be changed, just because it can be changed, I'm not so sure it should be to support a development of this magnitude. On the development itself, since we're doing these together, I don't know if height is a good place to talk in this body, but where everybody's freaking out in East Nashville is the height on these projects. And they are completely changing existing neighborhoods. The overlay looks right at this. So the conservation overlay is 22 feet away. Looks right at this project. And I would think there should be some ethical understanding of you're right on the edge of a conservation overlay, looking right at one. I think there will be a conservation overlay put in this development. The owners weren't able to mobilize as fast with the support as we were on the other side. I think the density is way too much. I'd like to see the density go down by half. I'd like to see all the ingress and egress on Porter. Porter can take it. Tillman cannot take this as an ingress and egress street. No matter if you widen it, put in sidewalks, all of you know that live around there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hi. My name is Eric Alvarez. I live at 726 Powers at the corner of Tillman. I will be directly affected by this project if this plan is approved. Ensuring quality of life was mentioned more than once as an important part of the plan for the future of Nashville. And as someone who recently moved from Los Angeles, seeking a better quality of life, I am concerned with the size of this development. You know, a lot of the topics that I'm talking about are the same that were previously said was, you know, again, I lived in Los Angeles, I lived through the pollution, the traffic, and I came out here because I love the city of Nashville. It's the right size, it's a beautiful city, and I love the East Nashville neighborhood, so I decided to move here. I went off script, sorry. I mean, this project replaces approximately 7 existing units with over 60. That is a huge increase for the area, and as previously mentioned, the density is just way too much. And again, that parking structure access through Tillman is a problem because it's such a small street, a small neighborhood street. Again, that entrance is going to be across the street for me, so I'm really concerned about it. But if they just move the entrance over to Porter, as was mentioned, that would help significantly to the neighborhood. I also wanted to mention that I'm concerned with the cumulative effect of the approval of all the additional building happening in East Nashville, and specifically in Rolling Acres, where every house that is turned down is replaced with at least a duplex or a larger development. I moved in and there wasn't any construction, and as the overlay was passed in Eastwood, everything moved over to Rolling Acres, and every house is being demolished around me. There's at least 5, 6, 7 projects within one block of my house. I would be fully supportive of a smaller project, as the draft plans I've seen are quite beautiful, and I like what they've done. I just want a smaller density. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to speak in opposition, if you'd line up at the microphone, please.
I'd like to thank you, the council, for their time and the civics lesson. It's amazing. My name is Sharp Emmons. I live at the corner of Porter and Tillman, right across the street from this development. We bought our house in 2003. We moved here. We had 2 daughters, 7 and 5. They're both going to Laughlin. We're fully invested in East Nashville. We are confronted with the possibility now of a dramatic change right across the street from us, blocking the sun, in essence, when it comes up. We're looking at a facade that is going to be directly a massive building right across the street from us. We're going from several independent single-family homes on these lots to a very large, dense situation. So much has been talked about utilizing public transportation. When we bought the home, there were no bike lanes. I ride my bike to Franklin. I am the advocate for public transportation, yet we're putting 100 parking lots in this place. So you're telling me people are going to use the bus and ride bikes. I'm just saying the density is too much. Let's pull back a little bit. We want to stay here, but what's concerning me and my family is that the change is so drastic, it's unleashing a precedent that's going to allow any person that wants to buy a block or two, demolish it and put in something similar that you might see in Midtown. We don't want the Gulch in East Nashville. We don't want Midtown in East Nashville. We still want to have families and to do those things. So please, we ask you to please consider a smaller amount, a smaller density, and I think that would make everyone happy. We love the colleagues. We love the appeal of the property. It's a great visual appeal, but the mass is huge. It's like having an aircraft hangar across the street. Please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Richards. I live and own 719 Powers Avenue. I'm 4 doors down from this project. I agree with everybody that's already spoken. It's too big, it's too much. Tillman Avenue cannot take the traffic. I'm also concerned as I live down that stream that cuts down from the property, and I worry about going from such a green space to such a concrete space. More of the rainwater. I know that the engineers have said they're responsible for it, but I don't necessarily buy it. That creek gets full of water as it is. Going from grass to concrete, there's obviously going to be more run and flow, and I don't know if Metro can handle that or if the properties can handle that, but I do agree it's too big, too tall. Thank you.
Others wishing to speak in opposition, the ones that are speaking, please line up behind each other at the microphone.
Hi, my name is Susan Pryor. I live at 817 Powers Avenue, which is at the Waters Avenue end. I concur with everything everybody said. I'm a residential real estate appraiser. I've served as a hearing officer for the assessor's office at various times when they've had their yearly meetings. I have no idea what this would do to my property. The density is too much. I would respectfully request at least a postponement or a deferment. The neighborhood only really found out about this within the last 6 to 8 weeks. We really haven't had enough time. The Colley family's been very generous in meeting with us and trying to answer our concerns, but obviously they've been working on this and with the staff a lot longer than we've had a chance to even discuss amongst ourselves what's going on. There is a lot going on. We do feel like we're under siege. In regards to this, there's the contextual overlay for Rolling Acres, which there are 2 streets that I didn't even know I was in Eastwood Neighbors, because on one street there's a sign that I'm in Eastwood Neighbors, and then there's, I guess on the other side of Tillman is where Rolling Acres starts, and I really didn't know where I was. So I'm in Eastwood Neighbors. We didn't know, a lot of our neighbors on that side of Porter didn't know about the contextual overlay in Eastwood Neighbors, so we're going to hopefully work with Rolling Acres and have our 2 or 3 streets attached to it. There's also another apartment complex being looked at, being built on the other side of Eastwood. We talk about affordable housing. I have no idea what the rents are going to be. I was unable to go to the meeting last night, but I'm just saying there's a lot of massive changes going on. We feel like we're under siege, and we would like at least a little bit more time to find out what's going on. But I can tell you the project at the way it is, it's beautiful, but it's way too much. There's what they call a duplex going on across the street from me, and it's already, Powers Avenue is a substandard street. There's already potholes in that street. We've not had trash and recycling picked up because of the construction traffic. Thank you.
Hello. My name's Karen Carson. I live at 724 Powers. I grew up in East Nashville. I attended East High. I'm an East Nashville kid. What they're proposing is nice and well, but it's not Sobro. It's not East Nashville. The architectural drawing does not give the good impression of the actual pitch of Tillman. It's a big dip. There's a big ditch that runs through under Tillman. You cannot pass one car by another. And for them to mention on-street parking on Powers or Tillman, no. And if you say to put it on Porter, then you're infringing on the bike lane. So I'm with Sharp and the other people who've spoken, my neighbor, Mr. Morales. It's just not East Nashville. It's just not to the character of what we've grown up with and what's been there. I understand people are anxious and want to come to East Nashville and want to live in East Nashville. I wanted to stay in East Nashville and live in East Nashville. I bought a house. It was built in '42. It's not the greatest. I've already put a roof, furnace, air unit, hot water heater, just tickety-dee. It's a house. It's an old house. They're going to require stuff. But so far on Powers, on my end, they've bulldozed. Well, one is in the process of being bulldozed. There's another one they're laying block on, one being finished. There's one behind me on Skyview, and the zero lot line or the duplex concept to get around the conservational overlay is just absurd. I don't know where or who is doing the planning or research, but go over there, drive around, be there when people are coming and going to work or trying to get out and do something. It's a blind corner from Powers to turn on to Tillman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others in opposition? Seeing none, the applicant will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal.
I'm going to go quickly. A couple facts. We are recommended for approval by Public Works. We are widening Tillman and we are widening Powers. We have on-street parking on Powers and not on Tillman. The height of this is no greater than what is allowed as an existing single-family structure within the East Nashville community, which is 45 feet. And we are 31 feet on townhomes and 45 on Porter Road, which is a collector street, as we talked about. That section is very good because it puts the relationship, our property sits lower than both Porter Road and Powers, and the context of how the land rises on the west side of Porter, which is to the left of the screen, and the east side of Powers all the way to the right of the screen, you can see the relationship of our roof line to those existing homes. We are effectively no taller with the exception of the part that has the internal extra den loft story, and that's internal to the site, not along the Porter Road side, the edge there. All of the parking is recessed below the grade, so it is contained in a wrap. There's no visibility to that, and we are over parking well at a ratio above just to address any concerns. Once again, I'd come back to the fact that I think this is an appropriate use on the types of collector streets that we talked about. And in terms of the architecture, we've taken great strides to really address the context of the neighborhood and what's being proposed. The reason that we can do some of the things architecturally and such is the density, for lack of better terms, but wrapping a parking garage, doing a green roof, all those things come with trying to get at least 50 units, which is what we have in the multifamily component, and then the standalone cottage home. We'd appreciate your support.
Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed, and I'll call on Jessica. Go ahead, Councilman. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I wanted to provide a couple of comments at the conclusion of the public hearing. There have been a number of conversations. There have been 2 public meetings. The number of neighbors were able to attend. I know that there are some concerns outstanding. There are some people who are supportive of this, and there are people who have talked specifically about some concerns. Just real quickly, I think that something like this is a good thing. You think about the density on a collector street where there's access to mass transit, where there's walkable commercial and mixed-use areas in the vicinity, where there's a bike lane. Something of that sort makes sense. If you look at this specific area, is this the right space? Perhaps. Is this the right number of density? perhaps not. I'd also add into the context of what is in the area Walden is coming along. One of the biggest questions that came up was, what about traffic? And you've heard about the parking being contained and they've overparked the area. One of the concerns has been, is there a requirement for a signal at Tillman and Porter? I went and I've had a number of conversations with Public Works. They assured me that even during peak portions in the morning and the afternoon, there would not be a traffic flow sufficient for that. But went back and asked, what about Walden, which is down the street? I know it's a separate area, but Walden is developing. The corner of Eastland and Porter is seeing more development. Down the street on Eastland, there's also development that's being discussed. Those things are going on. I am in the process of reaching out to Public Works to talk about a broader traffic flow plan for the entire area to try to address any coordinations that might need to take place for this general vicinity. And as was mentioned earlier, a contextual overlay is being pursued at this point for that portion of Eastwood Neighborhoods and Rolling Acres. So from one perspective, I think it does provide a fair balance between something that's more intensive on the corridor as well as protecting the interior of the neighborhoods. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Jessica.
So can I just get a point of clarification? Are we discussing both items
We're
together?
going to discuss both of them together and then vote on them separately.
Vote on them separately, okay. So in terms of the policy change, I'm leaning towards supporting that. I think that this is an area that it makes sense to think about increasing density. For a lot of the points that have been raised, the mass transit, connection to the various retail centers. So I definitely can see how this is an evolving corridor. With respect to the actual project, I have to say I understand the neighbors' concerns. I do feel this is a huge increase in the density on the street. I think that, the quality of the architecture looks great. It's a welcome change from everything else that's happening in the surrounding area, which is not built to reflect the character of the neighborhood in the same way. But, this is a neighborhood of small brick, single-story homes, and, what's going in is really out of context with what's happening in the surrounding neighborhood. I also have a concern that the neighborhood really wants to put in place the conservation overlay, and are in the process of doing that the conservation overlay comes right to the other side of Porter. It's like, I just don't know that I feel good about sort of pushing this project through before the neighborhood can organize in a way that they want to protect the quality of their neighborhood. So I'm supportive of the policy change, but I'm not leaning towards support of the actual project.
Jeff?
No comment.
Hunter?
I have a couple of questions. One, the staff report states that none of the structures on the properties are considered historic. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. What about, I guess I'm curious about further down Porter, because to a great degree we're talking about this area with respect to the Eastland and Porter corner commercial center, and so I'm curious about, if the staff looked at whether there were historic structures further down, closer to the corner of Eastland or not, between here and there. And then I'm also curious, and I don't know if we can or should consider any conversations that have occurred with the Nashville Next proposal and this corridor in particular, because I understand certainly the neighborhoods, my neighbors' concerns about change, certainly. But this is a corridor, a transit corridor, bike lanes, nearby commercial centers. It's really the perfect sort of example of a place where we could accommodate additional infill in a way that would encourage walkability. But I understand my neighbor's concerns about the scale of this. So again, the questions about historic structures and then about Nashville Next.
In our mapping data, we are not showing any historic structures along this stretch of Porter.
On this side, on that side
Yeah,
of Porter, I know there
correct.
are some on the other side.
Correct. And you asked about the policy conversation with Nashville Next. Can you repeat that question?
Well, I guess there's a draft out currently, and so the land use policy that's being proposed for this area, is this consistent with that, and or is there a change being proposed in the current draft on this property and even other properties along Porter?
So the current draft for Nashville Next does show neighborhood maintenance, and we have talked internally in light of this plan amendment. If it is approved, we would also kind of look at the rest of Porter and see if expanding neighborhood evolving would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And then I need some clarification on heights. I wrote down from the staff's presentation 60 feet along Porter, but then I heard and saw what looked like 2.5 stories and within a single-family home height. So I may need, I don't know if the applicant should respond.
Well, I can talk about what we received, and if it's changed in any way, the applicants can speak to that. But along Porter Road, they are proposing 60 feet. So this would be to the top of the ridge line of the roof, and 4 stories. So this is really considering the step back where there's a loft unit. And then along the Powers Avenue frontage, that would go down to 41 feet and 3 stories. But it would also include the garage, which would be tucked under and access from the rear of the building.
I think the issue is the frontage on Porter is not 60, right?
Well, yeah, in the elevations, and I guess this section also appears to be well under 60, and maybe I could ask the applicant to address that again. You did, I think, in your rebuttal, but if you could, are there specific heights along the frontage along Porter that are included in the SP currently or could be included in the SP?
They are included. You can see the dimensions of the heights on the far edges on both sides. The height along Porter is 45 feet on the street frontage there, and that is that dashed line that comes across, which basically is the same height as the property on the west side, sitting up with the train, and then a 2.5-story house in that location. On the east side, the height to the top living unit is 31 feet, and then a roof to the ridge of the roof is the 41 feet. There's no living space in that upper 10 feet. It's just attic space.
Okay, so is the 45 feet part of the regulatory plan of the
45.
SP? 45 feet along?
No, the drop
Porter.
down along Porter, no, that wasn't included, but definitely if you wish to add that as a condition, we can do that.
Because if we could go to the elevations,
Sure, there's along Porter.
Right. I mean, we even heard some of the opponents talk about how it's beautiful, and I think part of that is the scale from a massing perspective feels right for a corridor like this, feels right near, adjacent to a historic neighborhood, and it certainly doesn't feel as dense. And from a character perspective, it feels good. So I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to fall here, but.
William?
My thoughts really are reflective of the prior comments. I could have said ditto to whatever Commissioner Parr said, because I agree with everything she said. The SP, it looks nice. The policy change definitely seems to make sense. The SP looks nice. Widening of Powers and Tillman obviously would be a good thing. The internal parking thing I like too, but it is a big change as far as density. I think we're going from what would be 18 maximum units allowable to 63, which is a lot. And you could obviously understand if you were a neighbor that just being kind of an unacceptable change. And it may be something a little bit less drastic would be better. I don't know. I would be uncomfortable going from 18 to 63, I think. But
I don't know. I mean, I like the SP. I think it looks nice, but I think lower density would make me feel a little bit more comfortable.
Andre.
I'm interested in the timing. I guess the first question I have is the neighborhood evolving. You had mentioned something that I was concerned about is if we were going to do this, how does it then show up in the whole context? I'm not as comfortable doing this without knowing how many different neighborhood evolving sites we would allow, where they'd be, sort of what the overall context would be. I know it says on the staff report it's a minor change and didn't require a meeting, but to me it's either a catalyst or a precedent or whatever you want to call it. We need to consider the overall planning of it. Are we thinking that we could go neighborhood evolving all the way down to the next neighborhood center and all the way up to the next one? I mean, I guess I don't feel comfortable picking that one spot without knowing its overall context.
This is not all red?
No, it only is that red. So that's my first question. To me, that takes a little time to consider. And then my other thought is, I'm not quite sure how I feel about the height and the density because I think it's a little unclear, and I wonder if maybe that's a communication problem between the public and the developer. If we could, I'm sort of leaning towards maybe deferring because we could give the public more time to either get comfortable with it or find a compromise or something, and then it might give us a chance to have the staff look at, if we were going to do this policy, where else would we do it? I feel uncomfortable doing it out of context. And so I would lean more towards a deferral with those two instructions to try and come back with those answers specifically. Anybody else want to comment on that idea?
I want to ask the staff, can you tell me what's at the corner of Eastland and Porter Road? Is that not a shopping center?
Yeah,
Used to
so
be a
this
medical
is
building, and now it's or nursing homes now.
Yeah, so this is considered the Rose Pepper Neighborhood Center. So there's a mixture of retail and restaurants, coffee shops at this corner. And then there's a multifamily or senior living complex here. And then there's, single family, two-family residential along Porter.
Well, yeah, the east side, obviously, it's got a mixed-use development now with restaurants and stuff, and then directly across the street's new construction, it's under construction right now. Right? Yeah.
Oh, I know. I had another question about neighborhood evolving. I'm assuming that this 66 would be allowed within neighborhood evolving. Would neighborhood evolving allow more density? What is that the maximum?
The maximum density in neighborhood evolving is 40 dwelling units per acre.
And this is 2.2.
Yeah, so they're roughly at 29 dwelling units per acre now.
Sorry, say those numbers again. The maximum allowed is?
The maximum allowed is around 40 dwelling units per acre.
But let's remember, though, that the maximum on any of those is clearly contextual. It's
well, and it's also FAR and parking and other restrictions.
But it's contextual. It's not something that anybody's entitled to, right?
That's what I'm kind of driving at. We're creating an envelope for either this project or some other one. And if we're concerned about the density at 66, I just want to be sure we understand what we're talking about for the future and what other neighborhood evolving we want to allow in the middle of this area.
And I had a similar concern. I'm not sure if it was in the same direction, though, because at 29 units an acre is a lot of the townhome developments are around that acreage. It's not the Gulch. It's not even a lot of the apartment developments that you're seeing are at 80 to 100 or more at 4 and 5 stories. So while I know it's big change, and it certainly doesn't reflect the existing context, which is sort of, a really low density neighborhood, along Porter Road, if this is a place where increased density is appropriate, 30 units to the acre isn't visually, and in terms of a footprint, it represents big change for sure, but it's not excessive in terms of density, and I'm leaning leaning toward supporting that once I did that math and realized that we're not looking at, similar to a lot of these other big developments that Germantown and other neighborhoods are seeing with 80 to 100 units to the acre, 30 units to the acre here near these neighborhood centers, near the mixed use, along the transit corridor, and transitioning, and they're setting a precedent here with the townhomes behind to transition back to the single-family neighborhood. So, not opposed to a deferral, and I think your point's well taken.
Well, and then could you speak? Did I hear you say you were going to put a green roof on? And I understood your point. You have to have a certain density to allow the parking and the green roof. But could you just tell us about the green roof? You kind of slid right over that.
We are doing a green roof on top of the recessed parking deck, and it'll be an amenity area for the residents. So yes, that is part of the plan. One other thing, if I could, on the north of us, you mentioned setting a precedent, and one of the things that anchors this proposal as a policy amendment is that hatched area immediately to our north is a CN existing zoning that has a gas station and an automotive repair shop in place. That is there today. So we are abutting a commercial use in that regard.
Is there a bill in council already?
No, there's not.
Can I ask one other question? One of the conditions I see is that the height of the townhome shall not exceed 41 feet, nor shall they increase the height as compared to the structures across Powers Avenue. Those structures across Powers Avenue, to me, are completely out of context with the neighborhood. So I just have so I guess I wanted to kind of understand that and how the townhomes would relate to those projects, to those 2 units, because they can seem completely out of context with the neighborhood.
Right. We were looking at essentially the site section that was provided and how the townhomes did work with how the property slopes down away from Powers, and even though the massing may not be comparable, the height is not in great excess of what is currently shown on the section across the street on Powers.
Even though that section is really unique to that whole area. I mean, that's 2 units on the street that's very different.
Right, and we are looking at the context and also within the proposed neighborhood evolving policy, so which would anticipate some change, and this would serve as a transition from those stacked flats along Porter.
And so would neighborhood evolving then go would it go a full block off of Porter on each side?
It may not. We need to look at it.
Because that's basically what we're looking at with these townhomes, right? Is allowing neighborhood evolving to go all the way back to Powers?
In this case, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you need neighborhood evolving actually. If all you had were these cottage homes separate, you may not need neighborhood evolving for that.
Okay.
Okay, that's a motion on the 8A on the changing of the policy.
I'd like to move we defer 8A so that we could get the staff to help us understand the broader context of how much neighborhood evolving we might be seeing. I'm not opposed to it, but I just want to be sure I understand its context.
Okay, you got a motion for deferral?
And I get, before I finish, how long would that take? I mean, can you do that in one meeting, or what's reasonable to ask? 2 meetings?
2 meetings would be helpful.
That's fine. That's what I'm saying. Okay. All right. I will move we defer 2 meetings. Okay. 2 meetings.
Okay, motion for a deferral. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor of the deferral, aye? Aye. Let me see a show of hands. Okay. Passes. Then there's no need of voting on 8B. So it's deferred for 2 meetings.
Yeah, why don't you also make a motion to defer 8B.
I'll move that we defer to 8B 2 meetings as well. And with the hope that there could be another community meeting, see if maybe we could draw some communication together.
I'll second. I've got a couple of comments. One, I'd be interested in the staff looking at whether the policy really needs to go all the way back to Powers. And it could be that when it comes back, we're just looking at the frontage along Porter. And then Secondly, I think we definitely need some clarity, and maybe the community needs clarity, and maybe the SP needs some more specificity on the height allowed because I think currently, if it's written to 60 feet, then, you could potentially do, 4 stories right up against Porter, which isn't what's represented here. So, thank you.
Was a motion to leave the public hearing open or to close it?
No. Oh, I think to leave it probably open to be sure the community.
Okay.
I'd like to hear how they did.
Okay. Okay. Then let's go back through and vote on it then, make sure we know what we're voting on. We're going to defer 2 meetings, and we're going to keep the public hearing open. Okay, all in favor of that, aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Just one other thing staff will check on. I know there's been discussion about this, and there's actually a conservation overlay. There's also a contextual overlay, and we'll just make sure that we're talking about the right thing when we get into that, because they're 2 different overlays, right?
Okay. Jason, we're ready for number 11. Density down on East Line. I think it's nursing home, but they changed it.
Item 11 is Broadstone 8 South.
It's not that drastic then.
This is a request to rezone from commercial services to specific plan to permit a multifamily development. This is part of a larger mixed-use project that's located in Berry Hill. That area in Berry Hill is shaded in yellow. That project has been approved by the city of Berry Hill. Staff is recommending approval with conditions, including the removal of platted setback along Elliott Avenue and Inverness Avenue, and disapproval without all conditions. Again, the existing zoning is commercial services. This is a proposed site plan. This shows the area within Berry Hill as well as the area within Nashville. The area to the right of the dashed green line is in Berry Hill. The area to the right is what's being considered by the commission tonight. This is the site plan again. It calls for multifamily use only. Again, there will be commercial uses within the Berry Hill part. It would permit, or the plan calls for 174 units. It would permit a maximum up to 200 units. That requires some changes within the building footprint. The height permitted is 3 stories along Elliott. It would be able to go to 4 stories after a 20-foot step back from the street. Access on the units along Elliott would be from the court or from the street, as well as courtyards that were between the recessed portions of the building. Those have been articulated and recessed so that to take away the massing along Elliott Avenue, to break it up a bit. Vehicular access will be from Elliott. There will also be access from Franklin, which will only be for residents only. There's a central parking garage, which will provide parking for the residents. The plan calls for a 6-foot sidewalk on all Hillview Heights, Inverness, as well as Elliott. 4-foot planting strip on Hillview Heights and Inverness. There is no planting strip on Elliott because there is on-street parking. The next 2 slides are conceptual elevations. The top are a view of Hillview and Elliott. The center is Elliott, and then also Inverness down at the bottom. This is another view looking at Elliott Avenue. The policy is Center Regional Center. That policy supports mixed-use areas that provide opportunities to live, work, recreate, and that is designed to be pedestrian-friendly. Staff finds that the proposed SP is consistent with that land use policy. The plan also supports several critical planning goals, as outlined in your report. Prior to final site plan, this property it consists of several different properties that will have to be consolidated. The original plat, which is here, has a platted setback of 70 feet along Elliott and a 16-foot platted setback along Inverness. Platted setbacks can only be removed by the commission after a public hearing. That would typically come with a subdivision plat, being that we know that this has to happen before this development can occur. We're making a recommendation that if you approve this request, that you make that part of your recommendation to remove those platted setbacks. That will keep you from having to have another public hearing for something that we already know that's happening. In conclusion, staff is recommending approval with conditions, including the removal of the platted setback and disapproval without all conditions, as the request is consistent with the Midtown Green Hills Community Plan and meets several critical planning goals.
Jason, has Berry Hill taken action on this already?
Yes, they have approved the portion in Berry Hill that was approved in December.
The plan that we're seeing here has been approved, and their portion of
Their portion, correct.
Okay, the applicant this is open public hearing. You'll be allowed 10 minutes, and you may keep 2 back for rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sean Henry, 315 Dedrick Street. I'm representing Alliance Residential. Mr. Todd Oglesby will speak following me. He is with Alliance. As you know, this is the old colonial bakery site, also referred to as the Sara Lee bakery site. This bakery operated for more than 60 years up until about a year ago. The holding company decided that the building that dates back to the 1940s and the manufacturing plant was really obsolete. The equipment inside that building was obsolete. And so they sold the property, and the new buyers are proposing this redevelopment proposal, which is truly mixed use. As you saw on the slides, what's before you tonight is only about 1/3 of the size of the entire mixed-use development. And we're dealing with the CS that extends back there along the frontage of Elliott. I don't think anyone would argue that the range of land uses permitted in the CS zoning district by right are at all compatible with the residences across the street or the larger community. And so we think that it makes very good sense to protect that neighborhood by rezoning this property from commercial services. We met with Council Lady Moore early in the process last fall. She made it very clear that she has a process, a printed process, by having applicants reach out to the community initially to discuss the proposal. We did that on December 3rd. There were more than 250 notices sent out. There were about 40 people who came to the meeting that we had at the Sevier Park Community Center. And what became very clear that evening was concern about traffic, concern about drainage, and concern about what was concerned about maybe being too much of building being proposed on Elliott Avenue there, where those single-family homes are looking across that street. So following that input, we had additional meetings and conversations with the planning staff, and it was agreed by our applicant to reduce the height along Elliott Avenue from 4 stories down to 3 stories to respect the height permission, which is 45 feet for a single-family home on the west side of Elliott. So with the reduction along Elliott for this development, the permissions in height are actually a little lower than what the single-family could build if they decided to redevelop. It's consistent with policy. You've heard the staff make the recommendation. We ask for your support here today, and Mr. Oglesby will follow me. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for hearing me. Todd Oglesby, 1507 16th Avenue South. I am with Alliance Residential. Thought I would just quickly give you guys an introduction to who we are and why we're excited to be in Nashville. We're the largest multifamily developer in the country. We develop Class AA luxury product. We try to win on product, best-in-class product. That's what we do. We do it all over the country, and I think we're really good at it. This is our second deal in Nashville. The Broadstown, Germantown. We started construction in November and went through you guys, and we're excited to be a part of that neighborhood. While we are a national company, our business model is to be local. Andrew Stephens is here. Andrew is a local Nashville resident. He's been here a long time. Andrew used to live in this neighborhood. Andrew loves Nashville's neighborhoods. That's what he's done a great job of identifying sites for us that are adjacent to neighborhoods where we can capitalize on those amenities and walkable places where we can create a place within that neighborhood. As far as this particular site on Franklin Pike, we love the access to the nearby park. We've seen the rebirth of that strip of Franklin Pike over the last few years. It's starting to kind of move from a strip, 1970s strip, parking lots in front. The recent development has brought the buildings to the street. We're consistent with that. It's not in Nashville, it's in Berry Hill, but you'll see that in the plan. We are working in conjunction with the current landowners. We will buy the multifamily portion from them. They will be developing the retail portion separately from us. So with that, we feel like we've got a great design team with Kimley Horn. Our architect is also coming to town today if you have some questions for him. So I will turn it over to David to kind of tell you a little more about what we came up with.
Good afternoon. My name is David Code, and I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates, and I live in Nashville. It's 4101 Utah Avenue. This is a unique project because we are working with two municipalities. 6 acres of property where 2 acres are in the city of Nashville, 4 acres are in Berry Hill. We're proposing a mixed-use development that allows for 64,000 square feet of much-needed retail along Franklin Pike and improvements on Franklin Pike at the intersection of Franklin Road and Craighead to the signalized intersection. That will be the main entrance for both the commercial and the residential portions of this overall site. We have had public meetings and hearing as part of the Berry Hill process, much like we've done in Metro so far with a community meeting and now this public hearing today. We have developed a plan that allows us to utilize the property and the grade such that we can be contextually appropriate with the residential in the back. And if we could see staff where that we have a plan that shows the site conditions around it right here that shows you the context of what's existing. On Hillview, which is to the north of us, as residential and a multifamily nature. On Elliott, residential and a 4-story multifamily nature. On Inverness, an older but multifamily residential. And then we do have single-family residential across the street on Elliott. So as we looked at the overall development plan, we put our density more away from Elliott. We allowed 50% of the frontage on Elliott to be an open space, much like some of the older multifamily developments that you've seen on West End Avenue, 16th Avenue with these small courtyards. So we're trying to be contextually associated with the rest of Nashville. We've also then placed our parking structure behind this that will service both the retail and the residential and have an access on Elliott for the residential, but only for the residential. None of the retail will come through there, but the residential can come out to a signalized intersection on Franklin Road at Craighead so they can have access to the major corridor itself. We're dedicating right-of-way on Elliott. We're dedicating right-of-way on Franklin Road. We're doing improvements, sidewalk improvements on all sides of our property as we go through this process. So what are some of the issues? Parking was an issue. We're parking over 100 spaces more than what's required. And again, this is in both Berry Hill and in Metro. We did one consolidated study. We've worked with Metro Public Works, and we've developed a plan that is associated, and we agree with all the staff comments associated with that. On Elliott, we've been consistent with trying to be contextually consistent with the architecture that we're seeing surrounding our site, as well as lowering the height to 3 stories, having a setback to 4, much like what you see on one element of Elliott, but then allowing the 50% of open space contextually to give it some break, and so it's not just up on the street itself. We've allowed for detailed drawings to state that you can really see the architecture and having porches and front access coming out on the street. We do meet the current and future community development plan. As staff has said, we're looking at drainage, which all goes towards Franklin, a consolidated effort between both the residential and the retail portions of it. I think we agree with staff comments. We appreciate your support. We allow our last 2 minutes for a rebuttal and any questions that you might have. And thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. You do have 2 minutes for rebuttal. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support? Anyone wishing to speak in support, if you'd line up behind each other at the microphone, save some time, and you'll get out of here much earlier.
Hello, my name is Charlie Gerber. I live at 907 Clayton Avenue. I'm actually in the process of building a house at 927 Montrose Avenue. Been in the neighborhood for a couple of years. And I come here today to speak on behalf of a few of my neighbors, Jennifer and Michael Rebus, Jen Rusi, Elliot and Taylor Brown, and Marshall Burridge. And we would like to just voice our support for additional retail options on 8th Avenue. We've noticed that the road itself is, we believe, underutilized and has a lot of potential for redevelopment. And we support this plan wholeheartedly and hope you all will vote in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Michael Locker. I'm a property owner at 801 Hillview Heights, which is the Studio One condos next door. I own a couple units there in that condo complex, and I'm just very excited to see, such a nice change to the neighborhood. The Colonial Bakery site has been such an eyesore for so long, and having extra retail options for the neighbors in that condo complex will be a great benefit, and would appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Ryan Siebels. We are property owners across the street where the Sherwin-Williams and where Smith & Rogers used to be. And then I'm also personally a resident of the area. I live on Leland Lane, about a mile from this development. And I would very much like to voice my support. I think the current use as it has been for the past 60 years is obviously not to its highest and best use. It's take the opportunity to take a blighted site and make it something that's pretty vibrant. And I think the way that they've been pretty considerate of the mix of uses with the retail, which I think will be a great benefit to the area, and also the residential, and the way they've been cognizant of the concerns with height and tailored their plan to those things is illustrative of how good of a developer you're working with, and somebody that actually really cares about what the final product ends up being. So with that, I'd like to strongly voice my support.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sarah Dawkins. I live at 3615 Rainbow Place, which is essentially Franklin Road and Woodmont. I've lived there for about 10 years. Love the area. Don't plan on changing zip code soon, but I also am a lifelong resident of Nashville, one of the few native Nashvillians I think left here. All to say I'm fully vested in not only the community, but our fair city here. I just want to say that I fully support not only the project at hand here, but I'm really excited about it. I think that not only the luxury apartments that have presented here, I think that paired with the retail is exactly what this neighborhood is demanding right now. I think Nashville's growing, it's changing, good, bad, or indifferent. That's happening. It's a different town than the town I grew up in. And I think that putting this infrastructure in place will keep us the vibrant city that we are today. So I would just say, certainly appreciate your support, and looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Paul Dent. Excuse me. I live at 1506 Woodmont Boulevard, which is about a mile away from the site, and came tonight to support Andrew and his efforts to keep the momentum going on 8th Avenue. I'm in full support of the development, the beauty it brings to the site and the street, 8th Avenue, the development along that avenue. Is very exciting for folks in the neighborhood, all the way to Belmont, to Woodmont, 12th Avenue area. I think it's building on terrific momentum. We're thrilled to have folks like Andrew and Alliance on board with these projects. It's clear from everything we've heard tonight that they take into consideration the neighborhood and the concerns of those around them, being responsible developers. And we appreciate your consideration and hope for your support. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Calvin Ratcliffe. I live in the neighborhood of the proposed development. I live on Elliott Avenue at the Park at Melrose, and also have a unit at Studio One, which is on Hillview Heights. And real quick, I'm just here in support of the development. I think it goes without saying that it would enhance property values. So looking forward to a change in the neighborhood. I think they're doing a good job of responsibly developing the project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Stephen Graw. I live at 5000 Hillsborough Pike. I've been a Nashville resident for 10 years now. Consider it home. And just want to say that in full support of this project. Not only does it remove a rundown, unattractive site and replace it with a brand new facility that brings new retail options to the area, as well as additional revenue to Nashville. So I just want to voice my full support of the project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hunter Nelson. I'm also one of the property owners across the street at 2400 Franklin Road and also live on Roseland Avenue in the area. I'm excited about mainly getting rid of a manufacturing and distribution hub in the middle of a residential area and retail area. It's a main corridor. Mostly as someone who frequents down 8th Avenue, quite, I guess, daily, I look forward to not having to wait for the 15 minutes to have one of their, distribution 18-wheelers back up and block all 4 lanes of traffic on Franklin Road. So I do think that the mixed use and the additional retail options and more residents in the Melrose area is only going to, improve the quality of life of all of us who live in the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jamie Poland. I'm a property owner on Sigler Street, a couple blocks off 12 South, about a mile up from where this development's going to be. I just wanted to voice my support for the project. I've been real happy about the way 8th Avenue is going so far with the infill and the walkability and everything addressing the streets now as opposed to all the parking lots. I think this is entirely in character with everything that's going on and will help us keep the momentum in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Commissioner and Mr. Chairman, and Commissioners. My family moved to this area about 225 years ago, back when it was North Carolina, and we go way back in this place. My business is here in town. My sister's business is here in Nashville, and my parents' business, who I represent. I'm sorry, I'm Paul Batson. I represent my parents' business at the corner of Inverness and Franklin Road, 2411 Franklin Pike there. And my father and mother live, as well as my mother's mother, live about 3 miles away from this development, and are delighted at the development that's coming up. In short, we support this project wholeheartedly. If I can read just a couple of sentences from an article I found in the National League of Cities. Article's called "Cities Provide Services to Young Professionals for Economic Development." It says a strong, highly skilled workforce is generally considered one of the most basic pillars of local economic development. When a community has a highly educated, skilled workforce, businesses are likely to settle, stay, and grow and prosper in that city. It's what I've already seen this commission do elsewhere in this town. I love what you've done with the place in so many words. We've got to attract and retain young professionals into this community. This development is aimed squarely at young doctors and lawyers and bankers and engineers, and we need to hold on to the Vanderbilt and the TSU and the Belmont and the Fisk graduates that are coming out of here. Instead of watching them all have an exodus, we'd like to have them a place to stay, and this place is targeted squarely at that group of people. So it'll benefit the community. On behalf of my family, I respectfully request that you recommend this to the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Weissenberger. I live at 2310 Elliott Avenue, which is the park at Melrose. I came in not sure where to put myself in opposition, but I'm actually supportive of this now, actually, after hearing what they had to say. My main concern was parking, because overall I saw it and it looks like a wonderful plan and I love the neighborhood. So for the remaining time I have, just a few moments, is that just an experience we had at the park at Melrose is that supposedly the number of parking spots were built to code, and we have experienced that that is not enough for the residents and the reality of what's going on. And until the time that the transit situation catches up with it, being attentive as they have been with exceeding that amount really helps those of us in the neighborhood have the parking we need within a reasonable distance of our residency, because we have actually implemented booting in our complex, and even with that amount of control, we highly rely on the street parking to do what we need to do. So with that said, for future reference, I'm done.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Jessica Ruff, and I would like to second what my neighbor just said. I live at 2308 Knowles Avenue, and our current in the park at Melrose, and our current parking situation is quite dire. In fact, if we want to have people over for our clubhouse, we have to actually have them park, which is in this area that is now, I guess, going to be an apartment building. So I appreciate that you guys are adding extra parking spots. I was unable to attend some of the previous meetings, so I guess if you could just clarify what that parking situation is going to look like for the neighbors, given that we at the park at Melrose have such an issue. I know what I saw in the paper said that something like 800 parking spots, which would be amazing, but I don't know how much of that is dedicated to residents and how much of that is going to be retail. And so just making sure that you account for, 2 parking spots essentially for every house is what I think you need, especially if you're looking at attracting young professionals like me. I'm a doctor and working in the area, so a 1-car allotment per apartment is not going to work. My roommate and I, we go to work at 5:30 and we come home at 8, so not having parking when you get home is really killer. So that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Mark Thien. I'm a homeowner directly across the street from this proposed project on Elliott Avenue. And sorry, I don't have a fancy PowerPoint, but I do have 5 copies of that PowerPoint with the critique by the neighborhood of statements of conditions about this project that failed to live up to the standards, if you will, the context of our neighborhood, as we've heard so much of your discussion tonight. If you think that the Porter Road project is inappropriate or contextually out of line, I think you would find this to be an absolute explosion in our neighborhood. The property, I don't think anyone can deny, will be developed, and I don't think that any of us are opposed to development on this project. But the scale of this project is absolutely enormous. It's unbearable. It does not belong. You're talking about a neighborhood that the highest majority of homes are single story. They're single story and 1.5 story, and with a rarity of 2 stories. Where homes are being scraped, they're being replaced by 2 stories. This plan calls for 4 stories with a step back, I believe was stated, of 20 feet. Back in our neighborhood, out of 96 homes that surround this property, the average setback is 38.5 feet. Again, with 1 and 1.5 story dwellings. I don't even know how many people have come or will be behind me to speak. We've not had adequate time to pull together our neighborhood work group, and I asked for a deferral on this matter. And I have copies if I can share.
You'd give that to staff, I'll pass it around. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, if you'd line up behind each other at the microphone.
Hi, I'm Scott Bonner, live at 2401 Elliott. I'm actually in favor of the project. I want this place to be developed. I have a big concern about what it's going to do to traffic on our little block of Elliott Avenue. It's a sleepy little cottagey street, and the ingress and egress that they're going to add on my street is going to overwhelm us. It's going to be a big burden. And I don't think it's going to be a good interface between the two, the old neighborhood and the new development. I'd like to see if there could be some kind of traffic study done, and if there could be a possibility of the traffic being directed from Inverness instead of Elliott. It's just not an appropriate entry and exit for this many people. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing? If you'd line up behind each other at the microphone, it'll speed things up, and we'll all get out of here sooner.
Good evening to the board. First of all, I probably have more history in this neighborhood than anybody else has spoken. I give kudos to the developers and whoever have orchestrated to have all these people in support of it. But being somebody who's lived in this neighborhood since 1963, this has been basically a stable family neighborhood. As far as history, my dad was a lawyer in this town. Later on, he became a chancellor. And this has always been a family-based neighborhood. And all of a sudden, we're going to put this big 4-story unit. I'm glad to see they've reduced it from 328 to, I think it's 200 and something units now. That's an improvement. But basically what most neighbors that I've talked to want is homes. That's what we expected of that property. We're glad to see Colonial Bakery go, even though it's, the nice smell of the bread was good through the years. But basically, we're glad to see that industrial park go. And we embrace progressiveness. We like to see new houses. And that's what we thought would be built on that property. As far as the retail on the Franklin Road side, nobody has any opposition to that, I think, if you took a poll. But basically, putting a big unit like that on Elliott, it just doesn't fit in at all. And I would hope that the board would think about, if they lived on this street within a block radius, what they would think about that. And other people who said they're in support of it, most of them, I don't think, really truly know what that would be like to have a big unit like that in close proximity. Right now, traffic on our street is crazy. People going from Melrose to the 12th South area to restaurants and bars has already made our street crazy, and this would even be tenfold for the most part. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Please state your name.
Hugh Kilcrease.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is Lisa Rhoda, and my husband and I have lived on Elliott. Next month will make 20 years. And we immediately fell in love with the neighborhood. It's charming. The houses are quaint. The trees are mature. And it's changed a lot over the years, but it's really changing now. And I don't know that the area can really take this type of density development. And I'd like the commission to review the other upcoming development in the area, because it seems like it's just saturated. I support the 8th Avenue commercial development, excuse me, because I think it's an existing development that can be improved upon. But I'd just like the committee to take into consideration the density. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Douglas. I own a piece of property on Inverness Avenue for the last 47 years. The property that you all have listed on the board there on Inverness Avenue, that was not designed as the developers are proposing the property to be developed on Elliott. The property on Inverness Avenue is built in a U shape and on the perimeter of the land. Where you see those automobiles parked there, that is normally probably where someone would put a house. But on the proposed rental property where the Colonial Bakery is, if they was going to be building those things, redesigning them to come up from 8th Avenue back west to where the elevation of the land levels off with where it is at Inverness, and then use all that for parking, then that would be a whole lot better off. Now, these are not condos, they are rental properties. I know some tenant that moved out of the property at least 4 times and is gone now on Inverness Avenue. If it was condos, it would be different. The only thing you're going to have with rental property is people trafficking in and out like they're doing on the Hillview Heights property. So with that, if they could relook this thing and start over again, I certainly would appreciate it.
Any other wishing to speak in opposition? If you'll come to the microphone, line up behind each other, be much quicker getting you out of here and the commissioners.
Good evening. I'll be very brief. My name is Barbara Seeger. I live at 2405 Elliott Avenue, and I simply want to say that I completely support what my neighbors have just spoken of. We just learned of this project December 3rd, haven't had a time to process, don't have a good understanding. I saw a profound amount of support for the retail aspect of this project, and while I can appreciate that, that. 8th Avenue is a growing, vibrant area. I'm very excited to be a part of that. I'm not sure that there has been due diligence regarding the impact that this is going to have on this sleepy street, this quiet neighborhood. Yes, I understand that change is imminent, but I really do plead with you to give good consideration to the impact of this ginormous project on our neighborhood. Thanks so much.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, the applicant now has 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we stated before, this project is in 2 municipalities. So we have sent out over 650 notifications, both within the city of Berry Hill and in Metro, for these various public meetings that we've hosted. And we did host one on December 3rd, as it was said. As you look at the overall project, we have 312 residential units, but 158 are on the Metro side. The rest are on the Berry Hill side and are associated with facing Franklin Pike and access. We do have one access drive on Elliott for the residential portion, but they are able to come in and out of the Franklin side at a signalized intersection. So it allows us to have 2 ingress and egresses out of this parking structure, which is in the very middle of the site, hidden by both the residential on Elliott and the commercial on Franklin Pike. I think the other thing we would like to say is that we've got 22 on-street parking spaces now that are proposed on Elliott, which there are none today. We're over 100 spaces above what's required. And we think that we've been sensitive in both cases for both municipalities and what they're trying to accomplish within both plans. And with that, I'll let Mr. Sean Henry finish up.
I really don't think anything more really needs to be said in rebuttal other than to reiterate we're providing more parking than required. We're more than happy to continue to meet with neighbors. The public hearing is not until March 3rd, so there's plenty of time to continue meeting and discussing issues with neighbors. And frankly, I don't think we've heard anything here today that's in opposition from the half dozen people that spoke that would indicate a basis for a deferral as suggested by one of the opponents. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. That'll start with Hunter.
Well, I think this is a prime opportunity to achieve many of the goals that are spelled out in Nashville Next. And, Franklin Pike is one of our key corridors where we hope to see, we have transit and we hope to continue to see improved transit and walkability. And so I'm in favor of this.
William?
As a native Nashvilleian too, I liked anytime something like this comes up, I like to put myself in the shoes of the residents and think, what would I think if this were to happen to my neighborhood? This is a little different from what we've talked about earlier today because this area is already zoned commercial and had a company located there. And it sounds like from what the applicant said, if I'm remembering correctly, that there's already been neighborhood meetings where they've agreed to decrease some of the density already and obviously are willing to continue to meet with the neighborhood. So it seems like something that would be good for the area, like Hunter said. It seems like something that would be ideal. So I think I would be leaning forward towards approval of this.
Thank you. Jeff?
First, we need more urban infill mixed-use projects like this globally to make Nashville continue to grow. Let me dig in with a couple of questions for the applicant, if you don't mind. How many of the 312 units are 1-bedroom versus 2-bedroom? And then I don't see a total parking count in our case applications. How many total parking spaces do you have? 1s and 2s in total parking spaces.
They're all 1 and 2 bedrooms, and we have 825 parking spaces.
But how are the 312 divided between 1s and 2s?
70%. I have to do a calculation, 70% ones,
30% twos.
And there's
25 parking spaces.
between the multifamily and the retail.
Correct.
Correct.
Which going by Metro codes, we're 100 over for the combined between the two uses.
And for the retail, Sean, division between restaurants and straight retail of the 60,000 feet.
We're looking at a 50,000 big box end user on one of the floors. We have a two-story structure for the retail. So we have small liners facing Franklin on the first floor, but we're anticipating a 50-story one user for the second floor.
So the 10,000 square feet of liner space, restaurants or just straight retail?
It would be retail that allow for restaurants. At this point in time, we have not designated who the intended and end users would be.
And the 825 parking spaces contemplates restaurant uses in the 10,000 feet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then worst case, hypothetically, if the retail never gets built, do you all build the multifamily without the retail getting built?
Yes, sir. That's the intention. Now, a lot.
Yes, we've divided the property in a way that allows us to do that.
So you all would move forward independent of whether the retail gets built or not?
That'd be correct.
That being the case, I'll support this.
Jessica?
I second a lot of what Hunter said as well, and that this does meet a lot of the goals of the Nashville Next process. And it does seem like this is the type of development. I recognize there's some issues with scale and massing relative to the rear of the property, but it does seem like the type of project that makes sense for 8th Avenue, Franklin Pike. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't note that this is a great opportunity for us to enforce another one of the goals of Nashville Next, which is increasing the supply of truly affordable housing. One-bedroom units that work for doctors and lawyers and banks. Bankers are great, but I would love to see these one units be affordable to an entry-level school teacher as well. So I just think that as we continue this discussion and we continue improving 300-unit developments, we need to be serious about affordable housing. I don't know how many units have just gone in on 8th Avenue, but that is a prime location to get urban workers into downtown, and we really need to be seriously considering what we're doing in this area.
Andre?
We've talked about this before. I mean, that's my biggest issue as well. You know, if we wanted to, in an SP, say we want to allocate a certain number of units for affordability, then what has to happen in return to make that realistic? And we talked about who would manage it, where would the funding come from? And so it's a long-term discussion we need to have. If this developer happened to want to volunteer some as a pilot program, we would really love it. But if we could use it as a catalyst, as a conversation, just find some nonprofits or funders to help support something like this, on our next one, we might actually be able to say, if you want this SP, we want this percentage of units, and here's how we're going to make it realistic. So it's not an overburden on the developer either. It's got to work for everybody. So, you know, we've said it now several times, and Nashville Next, I know, is working on it. I guess we're talking about a subcommittee to talk about how we can start to find some of those various players that would make it realistic. But I think putting a stake in the ground at some point and saying, this is our pilot project, let's just do it. We need to do that soon. And you don't sweat, we're not doing it tonight, but we wish we could. If your numbers came up with 3 units, you know, if you're going to have a grocery, people got to work there. And I don't think the bankers and, doctors are going to. So we need to find a place for those people to live. I agree with that. It's an emotional issue, but it's also very, very important for this town. I think this is an exciting project. I know it's gone through a lot of the ringer, and I look forward to seeing it. I would be in favor of it.
Is there a motion?
I move approval of staff's recommendation.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and leave you leaving, and Stuart will be back. So. It's 12. I need the two girls.
So they're out there talking to Sean.
You gonna get them?
Melissa, you ready, Henry?
And now we have three. They were two. They were shopping.
No, he's out there talking to Sean. Jeff's gone after him.
Oh, you know what?
Is this the one you make announcement? No, this is Towering Oaks. We got one more before that. But that's on the next one. Yeah.
It's on 14.
Where's Jessica?
In the bathroom. Y'all were running your mouths and not focused on the business.
We'll resume the meeting. We're on item number 12, which is Towering Oaks.
All right.
Melissa.
Thank you. All right, this is item number 12 on your agenda. This is a request to rezone from RS15 to SP to permit up to 13 single-family lots on property located west of South New Hope Road in the Donaldson Hermitage Community Plan area. Staff recommends disapproval. The subject property is currently zoned RS15, and surrounding zoning includes RS15, AR2A, and PUD. To give you some context, the Towering Oaks Cluster Lot subdivision is located to the south of the site, and the New Hope Point PUD surrounds the site to the north, east, and west. The plan proposes 13 lots with access from Cherry Bart Court, which currently stubs to the south of the site. No connection is proposed at Cape Hope Pass to the north, even though the site has frontage on that public street. The existing policy for this property is suburban neighborhood maintenance, and the draft policy is suburban neighborhood evolving. The SP, however, is not consistent with the goals of either policies. Both policies emphasize vehicular connectivity and discourage use of cul-de-sacs. Connectivity not only allows for multiple routes for residents as well as emergency responders, but also helps to reduce congestion on primary roads. The SP is inconsistent with the goals of the policy and also has a recommendation of disapproval by fire, as a secondary access is required to meet the fire code. So the staff has three primary concerns with the proposed SP. The first is lack of connectivity. This map helps to illustrate the lack of connectivity in the larger area. The surrounding subdivisions were approved before the subdivision regulations were amended to require connectivity. The Towering Oaks subdivision to the south, however, does provide for some future connection to the east and west. However, given the number of larger tracts in the area that could develop in the future, staff finds that not providing a connection at Cape Hope Pass could set a precedent for a continued lack of connectivity in the area. The second concern that staff has is that the SP does not meet the section of the subdivision regulations that limits the maximum length of a dead-end street at 750 feet. So with the extension of Cherry Bark Court into the site, the SP will create a dead-end street of up to 1,600 feet in length. Rather than providing a connection to Cape Hope Pass, the applicant has requested that the Planning Commission grant a variance to this provision of the subdivision regulations. Staff does not recommend approval of the requested variance as there is no hardship in this case. Also, planning staff has talked with Public Works about providing a possible connection to Cape Hope Pass, and they've indicated to us that it is feasible at this location. Staff's third concern is regarding the lack of open space provided by the SP. Staff is concerned that the SP lacks the open space that would normally be provided with this type of development, and that this may be an inappropriate application of an SP, as it's being used to circumvent certain requirements that would normally be expected of this type of development. Staff recommends that the SP incorporate more open space, which is characteristic of the suburban context, as well as the surrounding neighborhoods. In conclusion, staff recommends disapproval of the SP as it's not consistent with the goals of the land use policy. It's not consistent with the subdivision regulations, and also the Fire Marshal's Office has recommended disapproval.
Thank you. This item is open for public hearing. An applicant will be allowed 10 minutes, and you can hold 2 back for rebuttal if you would like.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Tom White. I represent the applicant in this matter. Would ask for 2 minutes for rebuttal. The comment I'll make at the front end is that basically the principal reason for the staff recommendation to disapprove gets down to connectivity. And I have to comment, as the staff mentioned, there's ample predicate in this particular area that there's a number of places out there where people bought and invested significant money and time over the last 15 or 20 years where there was a separation. In this particular matter, the councilman's here, Councilman Glover. He has fielded any number of calls on this matter. He has had a neighborhood meeting within the last week. He'll speak for himself. The overwhelming majority of the people were absolutely clear they did not want any connectivity. And again, I think when you distill it down, that's the principal reason for the staff recommendation of disapproval. I realize, as this commission does, that it's eventually a legislative call, but we clearly would like the support from the Planning Commission. In addition, an issue was raised about the fire marshal, and the fire marshal has had some comments recently that they would need a second way in and out, or there would be a requirement to sprinkle the houses. My clients are willing to commit to sprinkle the houses. We're talking about 13 lots. They're willing to make that commitment. So we're asking that the commission approve the matter. We're specifically commenting that there's an overwhelming presence in this part of the community where this type of connectivity has not been suggested or required. In this place, we're talking about 13 lots. And the other reason, as I said, is a mandate by the fire marshal, which can clearly be satisfied with the sprinkler commitment. We're making that. Thank you for your courtesy.
Thank you.
Members of the commission, my name is Adam Sager. I'm with Dale & Associates, 516 Heather Place, Nashville. We're the civil engineers for the project. The project before you is an extension, or the third phase, of Towering Oaks. The subject property contains a small strip of land that abuts the right-of-way of Cape Hope Pass, as you could see before you. It's in the new Hope Point subdivision. Of all the comments and points brought before you on this, the main and really only item in discussion is that of this connectivity. I'd also like to say that I agree with staff and with the good planning principle of connectivity. We don't disagree that connectivity is a good thing. and it's applicable in most cases. However, on this particular project, we believe this is one of those exceptions. And I'd like to demonstrate that with several points. First, from our discussions with the neighbor, it's our understanding the small strip of land that does touch Cape Hope Pass was created for the landowner to access for their private driveway, not a public right-of-way. The original drive to this property extended to the east, and that was cut off when New Hope Point was created. And the purpose of that strip was to provide a private residential driveway access. It was not for a public right-of-way. That is what the neighbors have been telling us, and that's what our understanding of why this was, set aside to Cape Hope Pass. Second, if this strip of land was intended for a future roading connection, then why were there no radius returns provided when it was connected to Cape Hope Pass? We've drawn the proposed road to a public works standard 50-foot right-of-way, and when you make that radii turn at Cape Hope Pass, both the right-of-way and the curb get into the adjacent lots. You can't do the standard radii there and make it fit whenever you connect. While I agree you could install pavement here out to the road, it would not be able to meet the normal public works standards for a 50-foot right-of-way intersection. Third, there's an existing public road across Cape Hope Pass. It's offset just a little bit. It's called Annapolis Circle. Per the subdivision regulations, an offset intersection requires 200 feet between the center lines of the roads. If this proposed road were to go in, we would have a T offset intersection at 60 feet, much less than the required 200 feet. So if this little strip of land was originally intended to be a public road, why was it not lined up with Annapolis Drive? It could have very easily flip-flopped with the adjacent lot and lined it up accordingly. Fourth, the adjacent lots to this strip of land both have houses already built on them. Both of these houses are built within close proximity of the side lot line. And so what you would be creating is a situation where the lot to the east would have only about 6 to 8 feet from the house to the right-of-way, and on the other side you have about 8 to 10 feet from the house to the right-of-way. If the road were to go in, there would be a road a matter of mere feet from the houses, which really isn't in character with the rest of the neighborhood. And fifth, the existing driveway on the lot to the east on Cape Hope Pass, the one that abuts this subject strip of land, it's on the west side of the lot, or the strip of land side of the lot. And so if this road were to connect through, what you would have is the road intersection, and then about 20 feet over would be that house's driveway. And whenever you do create a radius to connect these two roads, that driveway would almost be right in that radius whenever you turn. So it would create kind of a conflict. Finally, as mentioned by the council member Glover and by Mr. White previously, a neighborhood meeting was held. A majority of those participants were very much against this connection and in favor of the SP. And being an SP, we certainly take the neighbors' concerns into consideration. One other item I would like to touch upon again is that I did contact the fire marshal personally, and she confirmed that they are okay with the plan as drawn so long as they provide sprinkling, and our client has agreed to do so. Again, the main discussion point on this project is connectivity. All other items really revolve around this point. I do agree and certainly understand the necessity of connectivity, and it's our opinion that this particular project doesn't warrant that connection. We believe that the proposed layout as part of this plan meets the existing character of this area and the neighborhood. We appreciate your time and consideration and ask that you approve this plan without the connection as shown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the commission, my name is Scott Davis. I'm with the Tennessee Contractors, the developer for this project. We were the developer for the previous 2 phases for Towering Oaks, and we're proposing this project just to be an extension to the existing neighborhood. But I just wanted to thank you for your time and your consideration for this project.
Thank you. Okay, you've got 2 minutes for rebuttal when the time comes. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support of this project, please come forward. There's others that'd like to speak. If you line up behind this gentleman at the microphone and speed things up.
Evening. I'm Jack Mott with the New Hope Point Homeowner Association, board member. We have 102 homes in our subdivision there, and of course, with what the engineer and developer here said and everything, we're in agreement with them. And of course, we did have a meeting this past Monday night also with Councilman Glover, and the majority, I mean, we had a good turnout from our homeowners at that meeting, and they were in agreement for the SP. So I do encourage you, after what they've said here, and hope you will go with the SP plan. Okay. Thank you.
Any others wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, is anyone in opposition that would like to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed, and if you'd like to speak in rebuttal, you got 2 minutes if you think it's necessary.
No rebuttal, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, I declare the public hearing closed again. Stuart.
I believe that the connectivity issue is one that has probably seen the most change over the last 2 or 3 decades, because a few decades ago, this commission did approve a fair number of these, in spite of the obvious impact on a road system and a transportation system. And I think the applicants have done a good job of trying to distinguish this, but I don't think they have from the standpoint of good planning or transportation. And if it's to be decided to do this, I think it would have to be a decision by the political wing of the government and not the planning wing. So I would not be for this.
Butter?
I don't have any comments.
Jeff?
No comments.
Jessica?
I guess I just have one other question. So it sounds like the fire marshal has said that this plan is okay, and yet.
Well, here's the thing. So after the applicant spoke with the fire marshal reviewer, I contacted her. The reason why there's a disapproval currently before you is because they have not indicated on the plan that they intend to provide sprinkler systems in the buildings. Okay. So with the current plan, it is a disapproval based on that provision that they need the second access.
Okay. I mean, I think that as stated in this, it's not just fire, it's other emergency services, and, 100 units is a lot of units, and I would, for my own well-being, I would be nervous about living in an area that I didn't think some emergency services could get into and help me. So, yeah, and I agree on the connectivity part. I just think that's a lot of congestion. And I can see why that would create some big challenges. So I am leaning towards not approving it or supporting the staff recommendation.
13 units.
No, but it's 100 total in the subdivision, in the overall subdivision.
Andre?
No comment.
Jeff?
No comment.
Any motion?
I'll move we approve staff recommendation to disapprove this proposal.
I'll second.
Motion second to approve staff's recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Let me see a show of hands. The motion carries. Ready for item number 14.
I guess I'm not running for mayor.
So my recusal from the first meeting still stands, correct? On 14?
14, well.
But I have to sit here and listen.
Yeah, stay in the room.
Listen, say.
Just for the record, Mr. Haynes has recused himself on item 14. He will be part of the quorum. It will take 4 votes of the remaining 5 commissioners to take any approval action on this.
Jason?
Okay, item 14 is Plum Orchard. The request is rezoned from R40 to specific plan to permit up to 78 single-family lots. Staff is recommending approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions. I'm sure that the Commission remembers this project as this proposal was seen in October and was disapproved by the Commission. It included 170 multifamily units, which included attached and detached units. The existing zoning is two-family residential, would permit up to 23 units, which would include 19 lots, and it would permit up to 4 duplex lots. This is the plan. It calls for 78 single-family lots. The density is approximately 4.4 dwelling units per acre. Majority of the lots, 54, are alley-loaded. There would also be 8 front-loaded lots that would have shared driveways. Those shared driveways are indicated by the black arrows, and they're all along the western property line adjacent to the multifamily property. The plan has access from Church Street at 2 locations. There was an error in the staff report talking about the connection to the north. There is a buffer yard there, so connectivity would not be provided to that area that provides a connection to the alley as well as the lot along the northern property line. Open space is a majority of the open space is around a stream that bisects the property. There's also open space at the corner of Church and Cloverland. Average lot size is 5,000 square feet. It would permit a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet. The setbacks along Church Street and Cloverland are 20 feet. The setbacks internally are 10 feet, and that's the front setbacks. The plan also has some architectural standards that includes some examples of the houses that can be built. It requires corner lots to address both streets. It has a list of materials which include mostly masonry products, brick, stone. It prohibits vinyl siding, encourages front porches and raised foundations. Policy for this is suburban neighborhood maintenance, and there's also a conservation policy which runs along the stream. Suburban neighborhood maintenance policy supports all types of residential, including single-family, two-family, and it can also support multifamily. It calls for development to be consistent with the overall development plan pattern, and also in certain areas provide transitions from areas of more intensity to areas of less intensity. Here you have more intense development as you go to the west towards Franklin Pike, and less intense, to the north and as well to the east. Staff does find that the plan does provide a transition as it has single-family lots, which is in character with lots as far as the single-family development pattern, which is smaller. So you have multifamily that transitions to smaller lots to larger lots to the east. The plan also supports several critical planning goals. In conclusion, staff is recommending approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions, and the request is consistent with the Southeast Community Plan and meets several critical planning goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. This item is open for public hearing. Applicant be allowed 10 minutes, and you can hold 2 back for rebuttal.
Chairman McLean, members of the commission, my name is Tom White. I represent the applicant in this case. Would like to ask for the 2 minutes for rebuttal. My client has been involved with this particular piece of property for approximately a year. We've been in front of this commission on several occasions, and frankly, I think we've done everything that has been requested, both by the commission and by the majority of the members of this neighborhood. I'll remind you that the front end, my client had a proposal that was to be a lifestyle community that had approximately 300 rental units. That morphed into a proposal for about 130 units of residential. That was considered by the Planning Commission. We were told to work with the neighborhood again. We came before the commission for the first time on October 23 with a staff recommendation of approval. When we came before the commission at that time, there were 109 units to be considered. At that time, we did have a staff recommendation of approval that I mentioned for the first time, but frankly, in my opinion, it was a relatively weak recommendation of approval. A lot of issues were raised by the commission members, and at that time, that plan was voted down. Now, the difference with this current plan is that the following. Number one, we have the support of the district council person who will address the Planning Commission this evening. Number two, I want this commission to remember when the last plan was here, there were 20-plus people that spoke in opposition to it, including the district council person, a former Metro council person, other people that were known in the community. Those people are not here in opposition tonight. In addition to that, I'll mention that the number of residential units has been decreased. The current number under this plan has gone from 109 to 78. So basically, there's been a drop of about 40 units. The plan has a greater buffer area, which was one of the items that was mentioned. We were last here. And in addition, as was emphasized by the staff, the only way in and out is over on Church Street. There's absolutely no traffic in and out over there on Cloverland. So I mention this to you because with respect to the issues that were raised, I took relatively good notes. I think the commission members will remember their comments when we were here last time, and the comments were relatively clear. The density was still an issue. We've dropped 40 units. Secondly, the issue had to do with the buffer area. There's a greater preserved buffer area in this plan. There was also a question about infrastructure, and we can't make it any less impactful than it is. There's 40 lesser residential units that basically have the input in and out two places over there on Church Street. So it's our respectful request that you approve this plan, as was commented by the staff at the front end. Because of a recusal to vote by one of the commissioners, we need 4 of the 5 votes tonight. We're urging you to do that. It's a good plan. It needs to take place. I think the client has done within reason everything they can to give a good proposal, unless we're just going to say there will be no residential in this part of town, period. You can't have, in my opinion, any lesser density and have a viable plan. I urge you to consider it and approve it this evening. Thank you for your courtesy.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Roy Dale with Dale & Associates, and I'm just going to add a little bit to what Tom said. And as you recall at the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about this. I've spent a lot of time trying to develop a plan that I felt like addressed those concerns. I know the former council member that spoke talked about less than 5 lots per acre, which this certainly is. It's on the lower end of 4. But some of the big differences I think you'll find on this plan is that the prior applicant was a national builder. I think that they basically had a building footprint they couldn't deviate from. There were probably slab-on grades. As a result of that, they submitted a grading plan. It had extensive grading, as you'll recall. It had retaining walls that people felt like they were looking at. All that's been eliminated. What I did when I looked at developing a subdivision for this plan was basically putting roads in on the existing contours, doing little to no grading within the site itself, which more or less forces a builder to do a custom house. The way this is laid out with the alleys, and if you can see the contours, basically the road falls back towards the alleys at the rear. So you simply tuck a garage under. You keep the contours the same. And so I think that's a very, very important part of this plan. On the prior plan, there were attached buildings. There were probably 4 or 5 buildings attached. These are all detached, individual, single-family homes. And again, there's no massive grading. Extensive buffering is going to be maintained because there's no grading, there's no retaining walls. I remember there was one adjacent property owner very concerned because they felt like they were going to be looking into a wall. There is no wall. I think staff even has in their report, nowhere within this site should there be a wall more than 3 feet to achieve some grade difference, and so that's there. The plan originally, when we submitted a plan for, I think it was 130 townhouses, a traffic study had been done and recommendations had been made. The same recommendations are included in this report. We're going to do everything that we said we were going to do when we had more units. We're still going to do that. So from a traffic perspective, the density on this piece of property and the traffic that is generated, quite honestly, falls within the margin of error of traffic that occurs there on a daily basis. I've personally spoken to several of the people that were here at the last commission meeting. Some are former colleagues of mine. I've talked to them about this plan. I've taken their advice. I've incorporated things into this drawing, and as a result, I don't think you'll see them speaking tonight. So I feel like the vast majority of this community is good with this. I've met with the council member. Hopefully he'll report back as well that he's comfortable with this plan. I think this is going to work. Originally, when I met with the community months ago, they talked about this type of density. I didn't think it was possible. But the more I've looked at it, you can build larger houses on smaller lots in this area. I think it works. There'll probably be a lot of empty nesters, people that don't have kids or people that are elderly. They're not going to generate a lot of traffic. They don't need much yard, but they want a really nice house. And these homes are going to be 3,000 square feet or larger. They're going to be $500,000 houses. And so I think it works. Most importantly, though, to me, is that you're preserving the property. You're not destroying it. You're not mass grading it. You're maintaining trees. You're maintaining the natural features. It's going to blend in, and it's going to be very, very nice. Keep in mind that planning had this on the consent agenda. It's recommended approved by all the departments of Metro, and I think it has the support of the council member. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks.
You'll be allowed 2 minutes. His time won't come out of this. So.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate you all sticking with us tonight, and of course all my neighbors too for sticking with all of us so they can be heard tonight. As Roy Dale and Tom White have both shared with you, we have been through 4 separate iterations of this plan, starting about 10 months ago. 10 months ago, it was 300 units. We have whittled it down to 78 units. Previously, that 300 units was multifamily. Now we're looking at single-family units. I think what we have seen over the progression of each iteration is that we have made significant strides in what the density is. They've addressed that. They have maintained all the improvements that they even suggested along the way when the density was much higher for this piece of property. The argument last time we were together and had a pretty boisterous meeting was that this was not, that the previous iteration was not an appropriate transition from the multifamily to the west, moving into the Cloverland corridor. Now we're seeing, I think, what looks very much like a great transition into the surrounding neighborhood. You see neighborhoods that are very close to this same zoning, if not same density. And we have a number of neighbors who have shared their support. And as I'd like to share with people on council, we joke about it sometimes. Grudging support sometimes is the best kind of support you're going to get when it comes to development. So I urge you to approve this and let me take it to council and see what we get there. I think it's a good, workable proposal. I think it's a fantastic and very viable community for this neighborhood. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support should come to the microphone.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Shelton. Lives at 552 Church Street East of Brentwood. And I have been living there ever since the year of 1968. And it's been a great community and a great joy of living there with neighbors and friends. And I would like to see that this approval that would be, developer would be approved and by the council, by the planning commission, and also that I have enjoyed living there, and hopefully that I can continue to live in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support?
Good afternoon. My name is Loretta Shelton. I reside at 552 Church Street East in Brentwood. We have been here now for about a year trying to get this approved. And we are the only single house now on Church Street. Everybody else is gone. Guess what? All the other lots have grown up. If we there 2 more years, we gonna be in the forest because nobody keeps up their lots. And we would like to move on, have some neighbors or whatever. We the only family there. The Laughlin, they're passed on and they're gone. Their son, he's in Arizona. His house is vacant. People that have taken the doors off of his house and they go and come as they please. And no telling what's happened to Miss Laughlin in them house because nobody goes up there. But this is all I have to say. I hope y'all approve it.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? line up behind each other at the microphone. And
Hi, Amy Greer, 5801 Cloverland Drive. You guys have some pictures. Actually, one of my neighbors took one morning several months ago of the parking lot that is Cloverland Drive. And just to be clear, we're talking about the east-west stretch of Cloverland that turns into Church, which is one of my concerns with this development. The worst traffic is along the east-west stretch of this road, whether it's Cloverland or later when the name changes to Church. So the fact that there's no entrance on the north-south Cloverland and there's a right turn on the north-south Cloverland, it doesn't really help our traffic situation. In fact, I think it shows that the developer's not really in tune with what's going on with the current traffic situation. As far as community support, we saw the zoning signs on the Monday after Christmas, which was the week of New Year's. We did not see these plans until Friday. So we've had 6 days notice. I think it's pretty reasonable to expect there's not a lot of people here to speak against something that they haven't had a lot of notice on. So I would ask that you consider the lack of community participation at this meeting does not mean that people approve of this. It does not mean they're excited about it. It does not mean they've withdrawn objections. We just haven't had time to mobilize. I think if this does go before council, we will be able to get our community organized and get everyone to come and speak in opposition of this development. I think all of the issues that we saw in October are still there. I don't want us to look at this like, well, the developers made some concessions, so we should just approve it. It's still not there. Just because they've made concessions doesn't mean that we now have the right property. I would fully support this SP if it were, say, 40 to 50 total units, but it's still just too high. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, you have in your packet some comments that were assembled yesterday and some that were assembled today. At the end of today's packet, there are 5 PowerPoint slides, and these are in addition to those.
Thank you. David Hooven, I live at 5811 Cloverland Drive. I'd like to say it's good to see you guys again, but I'm getting tired of this after a year of coming up here and constantly rejecting the proposal. And they keep coming back after saying they couldn't make it work before. Now they can make it work with less density. However, we're starting from here, coming to here, instead of here, where it's currently zoned. And why not? On the corner of our Cloverland and Valley View, there's a home that's worth about $800,000. So they could make these work. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of density. We are not an island. The reason I provided you, if we look at first page, it shows you congestion demographics as of 2008 and the projected density in 2035, which is massive. We are not an island because Nolensville's growth is 146% last year, and their projection in 2015 is 8,703 additional homes. I think we're getting this little portion of a huge picture. The next page shows the 20th busiest intersections in Nashville, in the metropolitan government. 5 of those are within 1.5 miles to 2 miles of our community. The last one again, the last page shows the cars. Now, this is all your information from your different departments. There is 16,000 cars on the 2-lane highway. 16,000 cars on the 2-lane highway. Old Hickory Boulevard has 51,000. And in conclusion, I've got 8 seconds. And the request for this development is the same kind of impact on traffic as a snowflake is never responsible for the blizzard. Thank you.
My name's Charles Blackwood. I live at 5650 Cloverland Drive.
Density is a big factor here. This development has no setback. If this was downtown, okay. If it was something that was downtown or in a higher density area, that would be good. But 20 foot is not anywhere close to the consistency of the neighborhood. This is a blanket cut down everything on the property. The only thing that's left up there is the corner where they can't put a house, and then the drainage space in the middle. That's the only place you got any green space. It's a clear cut. There's no diversity in size. In all the presentations I've heard tonight, everything goes down. Everything keeps crushing down for the up-and-coming professionals, single people and all. There's nothing in there for the older style people who want some size of yard. When are we going to go back to where we have some yards? Green Hills, there's nobody in the county that's going to a decent sized yard. Give options to other people. It's not just these group of people that are coming in that y'all cater to. Our councilman does not represent me, and he doesn't represent a lot of the other people that live in our neighborhood. He's representing the developer in this. And, it's just gotten to be unbearable every time we get this, that they keep doing the same thing over and over again. These lots, it's about density. Okay, they reduced the density, but then they increased the area where they're covering. There is no green space. There is nothing. It's not kid friendly. They admitted that. This is development for up and coming people, for retired people. So I live in the neighborhood, and I'd like to see it stay at least some transition to where it goes into something else.
Thank you.
Hello, excuse me, Betsy Stubblefield, 5711 Clover Hill Drive. I actually like some aspects of this plan better than what's been proposed before. I believe it's 31 fewer lots rather than 40, though. My subtraction's pretty good. There is less green space, though. And when I look at the planning department's critical goals, and I look at infill proposals, this is 17 acres. I don't know where it's written that an infill has to pack units in like sardines. You can infill with something that's not everything you could possibly squeeze on the property. I think the 4-foot wide planting strips along the sidewalk do not compensate for the loss of green space in this area. We don't have parks and a green strip on this side of Old Hickory Boulevard because we have our big yards. I learned that looking at the planning website and reading through the T3 Suburban and all that stuff. I mean, I spent hours on that back in the fall. So green space is still important to me. And when I get to that corner and I just see all these houses, nicer houses, I am totally in line with the bungalow type, whatever you want to call this cottage. I think they look great. But when they're stacked right up close to the street with just a little bit of sidewalk and a little bit of green, it's almost like looking at a wall. And to me, that's an urban look in a suburban area. And since this is a T3 suburban, we're supposed to be retaining the existing character of the neighborhood. And I just don't think the parts right along Cloverland and Church Street do that. I like a lot of the rest of it, but I still don't think this is the appropriate transition from the larger lots to these apartments up on the hill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Martin, and I live at 5680 Cloverland Drive. I want to point out that, yes, this is the third time we've been in front of this committee. We've been dealing with this for a year. In our last visit on October the 23rd, this council, these people, yourselves, voted these projects down for infrastructure. The infrastructure was not there. That's not changed. There's been no new roads, no new cut-throughs, no new sidewalks. None of that has changed. So if the infrastructure wouldn't support the development that was proposed in the past, did you give these developers a range and say, but it'll support 70 or 50? In fact, I'm sure there's some minutes somewhere, but there was one on the council member that said we had the cart before the horse, that the infrastructure should be developed, and then the developments to fit it could come in and use the land appropriately and everybody get good use out of it. But we're doing it the wrong way. We're trying to fit the developments into places that don't have the infrastructure. And this committee members, you all said that when we were here in October about this same situation. So, and right now I think there are planning issues that have been stopped in the metro area along that same corridor, Church Street out to Franklin. There's been development that have been stopped over there because you cannot get through that area. The traffic studies, as I understand tonight, we found out that there wasn't a traffic study done. So there's a question mark there. Was there a traffic study or was there not a traffic study? So that's something that needs to be, we need to finalize that and have that in front of everybody. With the opening of the Travesty and Life Point and Seven Springs, the traffic is worse now than it was in October. I really don't understand why we're continuing to talk about something that you yourselves, in your wisdom, said this is not the appropriate development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jerry Stubblefield, 5711 Clover Hill Drive. All I can see is that we're still in a terrible situation with traffic out there, and these, especially the ones along Church Street there, are going to be jammed right up on Church Street. I don't see how we can ever expect to have any kind of larger road out there, even to make it even a one lane larger, if the houses are built right on Church Street as it's planned that way. And the other thing that I want to say is that we really haven't had any time to look at this. I think you'd have a lot more opposition to this if the only way we knew about it is the two little signs that are put out on the property as we drive by, and we have plenty of time to look at the signs simply because we're sitting in traffic most of the time when we're driving by that. So that's the only way we knew about it. We weren't, and I live less than a mile from this development, and in Davidson County, by the way. So I hope you at least defer this and give people time to express their ideas about what this is. This is a better plan than the others, but still, I don't like the way it's all jammed right up on to Church Street. To me, it's going to make just a place where we could never expect to get any relief in traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make it as clear as we can that we have heard repeatedly from the majority of the people that live in that area that they were going to be satisfied with 4 to 5 units an acre. We've heard that repeatedly. We didn't think we could make it happen. But what's happened from the last time we were here to you is we've come back with a plan that has 4.4 units per acre. It addresses all the things that we have heard that are objective. I want to be the first one to say, obviously, we're not going to get unanimity here. But there is no proposal that I heard from anybody that came to the mic tonight about, well, if they did this, we would be okay. Some folks don't want anything on a piece of property, period. That's not good planning. We've done basically the issues of a density at 4.4 an acre. We basically made them all single detached units. We preserved the buffer space in a larger area. And frankly, if an argument is there's going to be additional traffic out there, we can't have this development approved, we'll never have anything on this piece of property or the very things that you approved tonight. You heard on every issue that came up tonight, there could be some additional traffic with it. If that's a predicate for why we can't approve a residential development, we will never have anything done in this city. Again, we've got a unanimous support from the Planning Commission, far stronger than it was last time for the obvious reasons I've mentioned to you. We urge you to approve it. It's a good plan.
I just want to point out a couple of things I think became obvious to me as I was listening to people talk. Probably should have colored those lots green. I think people see those lots and they may think those are houses. I don't think they distinguish that on those lots maybe less than half of that's going to be a house. So there's a massive amount of open space on this plan with these detached units. A traffic study was done, a new traffic study was done, and there's a dedicated right turn lane on Cloverland that extends the entire length of this property, which is going to relieve a lot of this congestion on Cloverland Drive. So there is a new traffic study. It's approved. It's been recommended approved by all the departments on the consent agenda by planning. Council member supports it, and it's really what the community asked us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilman.
Thank you for hearing me just one more time. I mean, we've been through a number of community meetings, and we have heard, I think, significant input from the community throughout this process, throughout this year. While I do understand that there are difficulties with traffic, I do not think this is going to be a project that impacts this neighborhood the way some of the previous proposals certainly would have. Again, this is about what's appropriate in terms of transition. I do think this is going to be a good thing for our neighborhood. And I do represent a number of other people who are not here tonight, who have emailed me, who have said they are supportive. While I would prefer, of course, this to be a goat farm for the rest of eternity, this is something that they can think is bearable and something that would be good in terms of what we do in this district. So I hope you will approve this, and I look forward to hearing you and your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Hunter? I already closed it. Closed it before we spoke.
When I first saw this plan, there were some things I really liked about it, but I thought I heard something that I wanted to ask the staff about. The streets that potentially look like they could connect to the north, there's sort of two street stubs there. Is there any reason why those couldn't be connected someday if other properties redevelop?
Are you talking about streets north of the site that aren't in this project, or are you?
No, these streets that are shown in this project, could those be extended to the north to create more connectivity?
These two here?
Yeah.
We looked at this. I mean, given the existing development pattern, we didn't see that that was likely to happen, but, you know, they could.
There's nothing in this that would prohibit that.
Nothing. The plan doesn't call for it, so they would have to update the plan, revise it to show those connections. Right now, they're providing open space buffering between the property to the north and this site. So that's what they're using that area for.
I guess my point is, you know, the reason the traffic's so bad in this area is because every development that has been approved here has not provided opportunities for connectivity or haven't taken advantages for opportunity for connectivity. And so that's what I really like about this plan, that, it's, we heard it earlier, it's, the one thing that people are opposed to is connectivity, but it's the one thing that's going to help our traffic situation. So, I like this plan. I think they've responded to the concerns that the commission had last time, that in general have responded to the public's concerns. I do have a question, and I think I asked the same question last time, but it's hard to believe that Sharp Avenue, Public Works would require Sharp Avenue to be widened, but it isn't requiring. Are they requiring right-of-way dedication for future widening of Church Street here?
Church Street, the right-of-way varies along this section of Church Street. So one of the conditions of the approval is that when it comes in for final, they'll have to meet the major and collector street plan. So once they get the survey, they'll have to come in. If it needs more right-of-way, then we'll get it then. We do know that the major collector street plan calls for an 8-foot wide sidewalk and a 6-foot wide planting strip along both Church Street as well as Cloverland. So they'll at least have to, if they can't get that within the right of way, they'll at least have to dedicate to the back of the sidewalk for that.
Does this plan accommodate that currently?
It shows a sidewalk, and they understand that they would have to meet that requirement. So not knowing exactly what the right of way is through there, through the whole length, I think it will accommodate it, but that's something once we get a survey, we'll have to look at it in more detail.
And that's a condition of staff, right?
That is a condition of the recommendation.
Okay, great. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Stuart.
I believe this is significantly different and better. I understand that the infrastructure problems don't go away with this. It's just more likely to be something people can live with. I understand the tremendous reluctance to see something this much of a change. And we see that throughout the county, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all like what we like and what led us to the area. We're balancing other things. That's why we have an entire process. That's why we have a Nashville Nets process. I am impressed with the changes made, and plan to support this proposal.
Jessica.
I second, I think, what the first two commissioners have said, and this is a noticeable improvement. And I guess I'm just struggling from the big picture, kind of the question about putting the cart before the horse and continuing to build out development before we really do have a serious look at the infrastructure. But that's not really the question right now. That's a policy question, a bigger policy question. But I think it's one of the ones that I wish other parties could be more engaged in. But as the plan stands now, I do think that they have responded to our concerns, and it looks noticeably better.
Andre?
I'm happy to hear everybody's comments. That helps. I think I understood about the grading, that each house would have to be placed on its site, that there's not any generalized grading. So it would be one house graded for that particular site. And that, to me, that I think makes a big difference as far as how one of my biggest concerns with this site is just being raised and a lot of units put on it. Obviously, this plan doesn't show it very well, but I think the point is these houses are each going to be placed on their location with a sensitivity to the topography and hopefully the trees. So I think that's what might make me sleep at night if I vote for this. That's the main thing that has changed that makes the most sense to me. I'm still looking back at the existing zoning allows 23 units, and that also works with the policy. So I'm torn. So I'll listen to you all some more.
I'd like to have a motion.
Well, I just wanted to make one comment, and I'll make a motion to respond to Commissioner Farr's comment. I mean, no single development's going to solve the infrastructure problem, but we can ask each development to do what they can, and again, with the opportunity for connectivity here in the future, potentially, and knowing that they'll be required to dedicate right-of-way along, I guess, both streets there. I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, got a motion second. All in favor, I need to see a show of hands because this vote is critical because of the lack of other commissioners here. So all in favor, aye. Raise your hand. Okay, 4-1. So it passes. Ready for item number 16, Jason. Everybody file out as quickly as possible so we can continue on with the meeting. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, item 16. Item 16 is Bellevue Center. This is a request to amend a portion of the Bellevue Mall PUD to permit a mixed-use development. Staff is recommending approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions. The current zoning is MUL and SCR. This is also, again, within an overlay.
Just a minute, Jason. Would you take your comments outside so we can hear? Go ahead.
This is the original PUD plan that was approved in 1971. Of course, this is for the mall. In 2007, the commission approved a revision to the plan, which was for a little over a million square feet of various commercial uses and was a redevelopment of the mall. That was a revision and not an amendment, so it just required commission approval. This is a proposed plan. It calls for a mixed-use development and includes residential as well as office, retail. It also shows that it would have a theater, grocery store, bank, those type uses. Those are specifically identified on the plan. It would also permit uses, all the uses that are permitted under the MUL and the SCCR zoning. This plan combines your typical suburban big box with a more urban pedestrian-friendly center. The multifamily units, which are to the north, mostly front onto private drives as well as some open space. One of the units fronts onto Sawyer Brown Road. Access into development will remain from Sawyer Brown Road as well as Highway 70. Most of the access points that are there today will remain with one additional with the removal of one access point along Sawyer Brown and then the inclusion of one more. The plan would permit up to 753,000 square, a little over 753,000 square feet of commercial. The maximum number of residential units is 500. So the overall total for commercial within the PUD would be, or floor area would be a little over 1 million square feet, which is also actually the square footage that was approved with the revision with the Planning Commission. So the only reason this has to go back to council for an amendment is because they're introducing residential, which was never approved by council before. So as far as floor area and the types of commercial uses, they would be approvable just as the revision was in 2007, but this time they're adding residential. The policy is suburban community center. That policy supports intense mixed-use development that is compatible with the general character of suburban areas. Staff finds that the request is consistent with that policy. The plan also supports infill development, which is also a critical planning goal. In conclusion, staff is recommending approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions.
Thank you. This item's open for public hearing. The applicant will be allowed 10 minutes to make the presentation. You can hold back 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. My name is Tim Sidema. I'm with Crosland Southeast. We're the developer of the project as part of the joint venture with the present property owner. I'm delighted to be here tonight. This meeting represents a significant step in the process towards redevelopment of a property that has languished for quite some time, so we're really happy to be here tonight. I'd like to take a minute to thank Councilwoman Wiener, whose tireless efforts and creative problem solving have been invaluable getting us to this point. I'd like to thank the residents of Bellevue as well for their active involvement. Our last neighborhood meeting, there were over 600 people there. There aren't many here tonight. Certainly, I don't know how many are going to speak against us, but the support was overwhelming at that neighborhood meeting, and I think that's a result of the collaborative effort that we've done over the last couple of years. The plan that you're looking at tonight involved lots of input over a substantial period of time. At this time, I'd like to introduce Kim Hawkins to speak to more of the plan specifics. Thanks.
Thank you. Despite the late hour, I'm very happy to be here along with John Gore with Barge Cawthon representing Crosland Southeast. This is just a great opportunity to finally reimagine these 97 acres as to be able to contribute to the Bellevue community once again through an infill development that has an infrastructure there to support it. This proposal recommends a mix of uses and a transportation network that promotes and enhances vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian circulation and connecting to that existing neighborhood across Sawyer Brown Road to make this a more walkable and livable community. The square footage proposed in the plan is the same as the approved PUD from a couple of years ago. The difference being that previously approved PUD was 100% commercial use, retail and office. This one devotes over a third of the total square footage to the introduction of multifamily residential, which is the reason that we're here tonight. We have been cognizant and respectful of the residential uses that are immediately east of this site. Those uses are actually zoned office neighborhood and RS15, but along that entire eastern border, we have provided a buffer that is higher than the requirement, one stronger than the required buffer there. What that means is that the trees provided in that buffer yard basically doubles along that entire eastern boundary. We've also provided berms that are 3-to-1 slope along that entire area to try and provide as much of a screen as possible to the residential uses. And those were all provided voluntary. We didn't have a request from the community to do that. At the core of the proposed development is also a couple of block Main Street, lined with retail, residential, hotel, and theater, and active common areas, again, breathing back in life to the now defunct mall site. A walking path has also been indicated throughout the entire development, tying into the existing neighborhood, but providing internal circulation throughout. We're also happy to comply and actually really endorse planning's condition to work with MTA to provide the potential of additional bus shelters there so that we can promote more active transportation. And so with that, I urge you to support the PUD amendment and staff's recommendation, and we're in agreement with all of their conditions. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Richard Jones, 1007 Malvern Road in Franklin. I'm a real estate broker. I've had the good fortune of brokering many deals in Bellevue. It's a very viable community. Excuse me. Everything from McKay's bookstore to the Ace Hardware out on Highway 100, you name it. And I just think the west side is very deficient in retail when you compare the north side with Rivergate, the south side with Cool Springs, and the east side with Providence. And it's interesting to note that Tim Sinema, who was just up here earlier, developed Providence Marketplace along with another firm. So I think you have a sense of the good work that he has done. Crosland's work in the Carolinas is impeccable. Many of you are probably familiar with Birkdale Village, which they had their hand involved in that. So I urge you to support this, and let's try to get this eyesore out of our lives in Bellevue that's gone on way too long. Thank you.
Okay, you'll be afforded 2 minutes rebuttal at the end. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in support? Besides the council lady, I'll let you.
Would it be a surprise if I said I didn't want to speak in favor of it?
I won't charge you with 2 minutes.
So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight at this late hour, but it's still good, about what we now refer to as One Bellevue Place. We no longer refer to it as that dead mall. Whereas I have been asked thousands and thousands of times over the last 3 years and many more before that, what's going to be done with that mall? Can't we get rid of that eyesore? We have had countless opportunities to develop it in less than respectful ways, and now we finally have something that the community will rally and has rallied toward supporting. In a word, this is transformative, not only for that piece of property, but for the surrounding property as well. In order for us to be an attractive community for businesses, for restaurants, jobs, and entertainment, is to have greater density. The norm now is to include multifamily with new retail developments, attracting offices, restaurants, and the retail. Bellevue needs vitality. Research shows that folks who are the target market for these types of living facilities are the 20 and 30-something professionals and the 55 plus of those that are smart enough to downsize. Overall, more than $3 billion worth of apartments, offices, industrial, hotel, and retail properties have changed hands in just Nashville this year. And that's according to the tracking by the Real Capital Analytics and Cassidy Turley. And they usually track things that are valued at $5 million or more. Y'all, the need is here now. The need is here now in this community, not only in District 22, but it impacts 34, 35, and 23, as well as a little bitty slice of 18. No.
No, you're not on the clock.
I know. I have spoken with throngs of Bellevue residents about the property, and as Tim already alluded to, we had over 600 people in attendance at our last community meeting. The negative comments were mostly centered around the apartments, but let me share a little bit about those apartments. Through my research and tours of similar properties, as are going to be patterned, or as this is going to be patterned after, this team is putting together a Class A project. I took folks from Westchase, Westfield, which is the property that borders it just to the north. Asked some people from Cross Timbers, which borders it to the east. They're going to go out at a later time because they had a conflict. Brought a resident from River Plantation, and they border it across the street, and wanted them to see what their new neighbors would look like, what the new property would feel like. And we were all knocked over, and I actually have statements from two of them who are home with the flu right now, and I have several here in the audience that want to speak to what they saw themselves. But this is a Class A project. They've even got wine cages there, which, who has a wine cage at their apartment building? You know, they've got a lifestyle center, they've got a fitness center, they have CrossFit. So, and the look is going to help the folks in the Cross Timbers area elevate their property values. This is not going to decrease property values. This is going to do quite the opposite. Other comments that I wanted to share about that are just that I look forward to continuing to work with the community. We have a resident here who does have some question about the Esterbrook corridor, and we have already spoken with her, and we'll be working with her in the future. I have another community meeting scheduled. I expect north of 600 again to attend sometime in February before we go to Metro Council public hearing. I really, really look forward to finally breaking ground and having that ribbon cutting in the not too distant future. So I appreciate that. Now I have the two statements. Would you rather me read them now or let the other guys have an opportunity and I'll come back?
It's up to you. Which do we prefer?
Well, as long as I'm here, you got me. So this is from Brad Emmett. He is the River Plantation representative, and I'll just read what he wrote. My name is Brad Emmett. I reside at River Plantation, Section 2. I'm a Commissioner of Public Works Beautification and Environment for District 22. I'm a member of the Bellevue Exchange Club and of the Bellevue Beautification Fund. I have been here long enough to have experienced the collapse of our Bellevue Mall, survived the 2010 flood, and was fortunate to have been president of our HOA before, during, and after the devastating flood. Needless to say, we as members of the Bellevue community witnessed some major changes. The amazing part of our Bellevue community is the resolve that we all had to immediately fight back to rebuild to at least 99%. That alone shows and proves anxiety and anxious attitude for our future in the Bellevue community. I was fortunate to be with the group to tour with the residential developer 2 weeks ago. They had assured us that it would be outstanding development, but had no idea that it would be that outstanding. From the entrance, it was a first-class development. They spared no detail. 2 separate fitness centers, beautiful swimming pool, ample parking, and the units are impeccable. We will be very proud to have this development company as a neighbor and an ally. And then the other one is from the Westfield resident. Her name is Ellen Reynolds. I live in the Westfield subdivision, the property that borders this project to the north. Having had the opportunity to tour the project upon which this residential piece will be patterned, I can say without question that I wholeheartedly support this plan. The overall development as proposed will increase our property values and trigger new growth and development. We can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support?
Good evening. I'm Gloria Hauser, and I live within walking distance of this proposed project. I'm at 222 Plantation Court. And I speak to you today not only as a resident, but someone who was an economic developer for 7 years. And through that, I became keenly aware the impact that a project can have on a community. It can impact the property values, the livability, the business attractiveness, as well as the economic attractiveness of an area. I must say that before I went to the meeting, I was thinking it was just going to be another boring big box mall that we're all reading about or dying across the United States and becoming another eyesore. But I thought at least it'd be better than the blight that's there now. I was so delighted after I went to the meeting. I mean, I almost became perhaps a public enemy because I wanted to sing and dance and I can't sing. But I was so excited by what I saw, because what I saw was, instead of just a dead big box covered mall, a town center that was going to be offering that combination that we're all hearing is the future, which is combining living, working, playing all in the same area. And that's what this proposal is. I'm really excited by the layout of it, the fact that there's going to be walking space. I'm a walker. I can see that I'll walk to the mall and I'll walk in that area. And I see that for myself and my granddaughter, we will end up spending a lot of time there. As a Bellevue resident, I see that this is going to come from something that is a detractor to the neighborhood and make you feel almost ashamed, to suddenly having a Bellevue pride, because it's when people pull off of 40 and they're going to see this mall, they're going to go, gosh, you are so lucky. You've got this right here. I think that the developer has really taken a lot of time to make sure that all the needs of the residents were going to be met, and I just can't wait to see it happen. So I hope that you do approve this.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dave Rosenberg. I live at 7429 Riverfront Drive in Bellevue. I love our community, the neighbors, the scenery, the serenity, the location. It's a special community, and that's never been evidenced more than during and following the flood. But in Bellevue, there's always an undertone of negativity, and that's clearly due to the mall situation, which is both the cause of and a metaphor for Bellevue's relative stagnation. It's stagnation during a period that's seen explosive growth in neighborhoods across the city and metro area. The mall is the literal and symbolic center of our community, and we so badly want and need to see it come back to life. In fact, given the cynicism of so many in our community due to failed development attempt after failed development attempt during the economic downturn, I believe this might be Bellevue's last chance to find widespread community support for a project of this magnitude. Folks can only handle getting disappointed so many times. Given that Bellevue is so desperate to see this property recovered in any way, the fact that we're being presented with an amazing opportunity like this is a dream. A carefully developed, walking-friendly city center, one with badly needed restaurants, various forms of family entertainment, medical offices, and an on-site community is a huge win for Bellevue, and one that we've earned. I respectfully ask that you vote to approve the PUD amendment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Charlie Cooper, 412 General George Patton Road. I've been a resident of Bellevue for 18 years, and I think this is the best thing that can happen to this property for Bellevue. It's late, and I'll be brief. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dawn Bagby, and I own multiple properties in Bellevue, and I also work for a Bellevue-based real estate company. So I've heard many, many times what's going on with the mall, just like Sherry has. Anybody that lives in Bellevue has heard this. This is going to be a win-win for Bellevue, and we need this. It's hurting us having that big dead space sitting there. And if any of you have ever been to Bellevue, it almost makes your mouth drop. It's unbelievable. So we're a great community. We deserve this. We want this, and we hope that you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Hopefully we'll wrap this thing up here pretty quick, can't we? My name is Matt Lowney. I live at 1004 Morgan Trace Court in Trace Side neighborhood, and really here on two fronts. One, kind of speak generally. I think, as others have said, this needs to happen. I mean, I think it's something that keeps us from moving forward as a community. Until this gets done, really nothing else can get done from a development standpoint. So it needs to happen. And I was also invited by Councilman or Woman Weiner to go out and actually tour the residential portion of this, and they did a fantastic job. I think it would add a lot to Bellevue as well as this development. So wholeheartedly is something we need to move forward with as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition?
I'm Linda Bozza. I live directly across from, well, I will be facing the back of this line of stores. I'm very worried about the noise, the dumpsters. As my property now adjoins an assisted living, and I hear the dumpsters coming in at 3:30 in the morning. They wake me up most mornings. That's a big concern. Also, I'm 2 doors down from Estabrook. It would be good to have a walking access across to from Estabrook, but we don't need traffic coming from Estabrook going to Cross Timbers. This area is walking distance to the Bellevue Middle School, proposed maybe high school. These are going to be a problem. As it was until the sidewalk was put in on Sawyer Brown, I could go in, walk in the Estabrook area and kind of avoid Cross Timbers because the traffic's rather fast on Cross Timbers. But this is going to make that a throughway. Sawyer Brown in front of my house has long been a drag strip in the middle of the night. Almost any time on the weekend, you hear the kids dragging up and down the street. They promised me that they would have a berm and have it landscaped so that I would not be seeing the back of these buildings. But if they do that, that's going to make a blind intersection there at Estabrook for cars pulling out of this area. So it would be best if that did not come directly across to Estabrook. Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none, you got 2 minutes for rebuttal. Okay. I declare the public hearing closed. And Jeff?
We see lots of plans that don't have economic viability, and certainly the council person has seen Bellevue Mall have lots of plans that weren't necessarily economically viable, and I think this developer and this plan are fabulous and are economically viable, which is key. So I applaud the plan and the developer.
Jessica?
I also am excited. I mean, I agree it's certainly an eyesore, so it's exciting to see something of this magnitude and potential success coming in. I just have to make one more plug, 500 units of housing. I wish that we knew that some portion of that could be workforce housing, but that's aside.
Andre.
I think this is really exciting, and congratulations to all of you for a long haul. And I think it's appropriate, I know it's late, but it's appropriate to make a presentation to the public and feel the excitement of what your work has paid off to get here. So it's really great that the whole public can see that. I'm in support of this. I think it's really exciting. And as a planner, though, I have to talk about design and future. And I want to say a couple of things just for you to consider about the future, because we've looked at plans in the past about this site and thinking about how you connect to the rest of the community and what all the potential is and more residential, and there are ways to lay out some roads, and I think I see that you've done this to some degree when there can be more intense development that the community can handle later, which they're not ready for yet. that the roadways access and allow for more development. And I think that's really important, and I appreciate your sensitivity to where you've connected roads and I think allowed for some of that. My only concern is there is commercial zoning to the east of this, and I realize there's neighborhood resistance today, but if the building that is going to have its back to Sawyer Brown, maybe one day it would just get torn down. But I guess my thought is at some point we want to connect over and let that commercial be a viable commercial area that we might need in the future. And so I don't know what allowance might be made in the future for that. Maybe it's those two roads. But I just want to mention that for us as planners to think about how we're going to deal with that commercial site in the future in relationship to this. I think there could, I would love to see more residential, so I'm excited there's any residential, and I'd like to see it on top of the big boxes and on top of the streetscape area and everywhere. So I hope we'll see that one day, but right now it's really exciting. Thank you for making the presentation.
Stuart?
There's not much I can add. I was pretty excited as well to hear about this. I just add that, from a lot of experience on the commission and on the council, it's clear that these things don't come together and don't happen without a very committed and talented elected official who can command people to come together and invite others to come together and use good skills. And I think this is quite a tribute to her. So,
Hunter?
I won't add much, but I will second Commissioner LaQuire, and I guess I do have a question related to this. Does the current plan, I guess I'll ask the staff first, does the current plan reflect the maximum allowable program? In other words, could this plan accommodate additional, what's not physically shown here? Is there any sort of cushion or additional program?
The zoning code permits up to 10% increase without going back to council, so there is an ability to go up
10%. Correct. So this plan essentially reflects what the maximum allowable program.
Correct, and then you would have 10% from that.
Okay. Well, maybe this is this generation of this plan, and in 10 or 15 years we'll see that next generation, because I think the way the plan is laid out creates connectivity and provides the opportunity to come back with structured parking, with more intensity, with residential, and hopefully it'll be successful and build on that, much like other places like Cool Springs have started to sort of reinvent the suburban model into a new model. So I'm going to support it.
Somebody give me a motion.
Move approval.
Motion and second for approval. Everybody in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Out of here before I pass out.
All right.
Tell Lillian she owes me one.
Okay, mark you off. Park and Recreation. Anything from Ms. Stark, Hunter? No. And do you have about a half a second you want to speak? Or?
Happy New Year.
Go home.